Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Sturbridge Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website at https://www.sturbridge.gov/town-administrator/pages/how-access-virtual-meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch this meeting either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on cable television on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428# for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number is only active for the public during public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the meetings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Here we go.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the March 15th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting. On our agenda this evening, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, public service announcements, moment of silence. At 6:35, we have a public hearing for the Thai Place restaurant, liquor license transfer, and approval of an alteration of its premises, a change in class from malt/wine to an all-alcohol license, and to change the liquor license manager. 6:40, we have a public hearing application for Lucky Mart for an amended license for gas tanks for flammable materials. 6:45, we have a poll hearing, National Grid installation of one jointly owned pole on Whittemore Road. Then we have department reports, police department, fire department, town administrator, and we have a presentation by GovHR USA on the compensation and classification plan. And then we have several action items. Then we have old business, new business, correspondence, approval of minutes, citizens forum, and then adjourn. Okay, could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public service announcements. Ian, do you have anything?
I have none.
Mike?
I had muted myself, I'm sorry. Before our next meeting, I believe we're going to go through some holidays, Easter, Passover, and so forth. And it's a time for reflection with everything we've been through last year with COVID and so forth. So I just encourage townspeople to think about everything we've been through, and we've got a much brighter year ahead of us.
Okay. Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I also just wanted to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day to our residents and colleagues. Happy Easter as well. And for those who are Orthodox like myself, I'll wish us in May. But have a blessed Easter. That's it.
Chase?
Just echo the comments of the board about the holidays, and I have no further public service now.
Okay, I have nothing other than also echoing the sentiments of Mike and Mary. Okay, could we please have a moment of silence now for all those affected by the COVID? Okay, thank you. public notice for the hearing?
Yes, I do. Notification is hereby given that an application has been filed by the Thai Place Restaurant for a liquor license transfer from Trong In, I think I mispronounced that, Inhagosa, and to Debbie Sandara, an approval of an alteration of the premises, a change in the class from malt wine to an all alcohol license, and to change the liquor license manager to Debbie Sandara for the premises located at 371 Main Street, Sturbridge, Mass. 01566, with the Sturbridge Board of Selectmen in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138. A public hearing will be held on Monday, March 15, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. This hearing will be held virtually. The Sturbridge Board of Selectmen elect, consistent with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, to hold the public hearing virtually. Details regarding how to virtually access a meeting can be found here at the town website, www.sturbridge.gov/town administrator /pages/how to access virtual meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Jeff, I just have a question. Didn't we already do a extension of premise and change in the category?
My understanding is that this was heard before, but for some reason it got hung up at the state.
Oh, okay, so we just do it again and resubmit it, right?
I think that's where we are.
Okay. Is there anyone to present the information on the application?
Hi, this is Cody Chantafong representing the Thai Place. And as you said, the paperwork got a little bit of hiccup, so we have to reapply it and submit it again for this. I think that's all we have to do. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened. That's why we at. That's why we have to reapply and do the meeting over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this was exactly a year ago, right? Right before COVID, or right smack dab when it hit?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know what happened, so we decided to just reapply it and do it again over.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. It is a public hearing, so does anyone at home have a comment?
Chase had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on how good the restaurant looks inside in your addition. It really came out nice. You guys should be happy.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chase, I didn't see your hand.
No, big meeting tonight.
Okay. Public hearing, does anyone at home have a question or a comment?
Let me find out.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would speak to the public hearing for the Thai Place liquor license transfer? Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the Thai Place liquor license transfer? There's no one to speak to that item, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a motion then to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
This is Mike, so move. Second, Mike.
Okay, any discussion? Ian, how do you vote?
I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay, Mike, how do you vote?
Mike votes yes.
Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Chase, how do you vote?
Chase, yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, someone want to make a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make a
Well,
motion.
this is Mike.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yep.
I'll make the motion to approve the the liquor license and change of premises. I lost my page here. So, for the Thai place, yeah, we want to approve. I guess they're looking for all alcohol liquor license. That's part of the motion, and also the revisions to the change of premises so that there's the seating is as shown on the plans. Is there? I think that's all they're asking for.
Okay, and did you mention the change of manager?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, change of manager to Sandra. I'm trying to.
Sandra.
Debbie Sandara.
Debbie. Yeah, Debbie Sandara.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Chase.
Any discussion? Okay, Chase, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mary, how do you vote? Mary?
We can't hear you, Mary.
She's muted.
I'm not sure she's on.
Yeah. Maybe her mic's off.
We can't hear you, Mary.
Maybe she can raise her hand to vote yes?
Well, it's supposed to be a voice vote.
Oh, okay. Well,
No. Here she comes. Mary, you there?
I don't know.
Yep.
I am. On my computer, it says you know, my mic's on. I've got the green light, so I don't know.
Okay, we can
But
hear you now.
I guess I'll stay on the phone. Okay, Mary, yes.
Okay. Michael, how do you vote?
Mike votes yes.
Chase, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Thank you. Chase.
And I vote yes. Okay, 4 yeses, 1 abstention.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for coming in, and good luck.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Mary Dowling, can you turn the volume down on your computer? Turn off your computer speaker. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, they can't hear me. I had to call in. They couldn't hear me. I had to call in even though my mic's on. I had to.
Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing and application for Lucky Mart for an amended license for gas tank. Mike, do you have the notice?
Yes, I do.
Could you hear me now?
This is the Town of Sturbridge Board of Selectmen in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 148, Section 13. Hereby give notice that a public hearing will be held on March 15th, 2021, 3 p.m. for the application of Lucky Mart for an amended license for gas tanks for flammable materials located at Sturbridge, Mass. 01566. The Sturbridge Board of Selectmen elect consistent with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38.
So all of a sudden they couldn't.
To hold the public hearing.
I can't. Hold on. I can't turn my volume all the way down because then I can't hear you.
You got to listen on the phone. You're going to have to listen on the phone.
Yeah.
It told me that I was muted by the organizer.
I just did because we're getting feedback from your computer.
Oh, okay. He did that after I already.
Okay. According to Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, to hold the public hearing virtually. Details regarding how to virtually access a meeting can be found here at the town website, www.sturbridge.gov/town-administrator/
Can I use the nominal?
/pages how to access virtual meetings. That's the notice.
Okay. Does anybody have any question on it?
I know, but can you bring me an almond milk from Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah. It's, I guess it's a total of 30,000 gallons, one 15,000 gallon regular gas and 7,500 gallon tank, underground storage tank for high test, and another one 7,500 gallon tank for diesel. That's what the application's for.
Right.
I have no questions.
Hey, anybody else? Hey, it is a public hearing, so Jeff, you want to check if anyone's calling in?
Yes, good evening. My name is Richard with Northgate Contractors. How are you all?
Oh, fine, thanks. Didn't realize anybody was there.
Yes, ma'am. I have my camera off. I'm actually pulled over so I can be on the meeting. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to address them. We are the contractor doing the install of the project located at 122 Main Street. Capacity has remained the same. We just did a reduction in the quantity with the upgrade of the new state requirement for their compliance and the fueling system structure.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Yes?
Yeah, before we get to public comment or public, I got a request from the Conservation Commission today. I guess they've been working with the contractor to get some erosion and sediment control in place. I'd just like to hear from the contractor when that may be.
Yes, sir. That is scheduled for this week. Due to the weather of the snow, it's not possible to put the silt fence and sediment control hay bales around the snow or on top of it. Now that the weather has broken, plus due to the COVID delays of just being able to transport and order the equipment or parts needed to install the erosion protection, but that is scheduled with my office this week. I believe Wednesday they'll have a crew out there installing that.
Okay, they're asking that the board kind of put that as a must-have this evening by the end of the week, please. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the Lucky Mart propane gas tank amended license, or gas, not gas, but underground tank license? Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the Lucky Mart gas tank application? There's no one on the public line for that, Madam Chair.
There is a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Mike, and I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second Mike's motion. Ian?
Chase, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Chase.
Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, is there someone that wants to make a motion for or against?
I'll make the motion to approve the license subsequent to the restrictions placed on sediment. Or
Mike, I'll second that motion.
Okay, Jeff, what's the exact wording from the...
That the erosion and settlement control requested by the Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act be installed this week.
That okay with you, Ian?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Mike, you made a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Chase, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Chase.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Mary?
Mary, yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Well, within the time. Okay, next we have a public poll hearing. National Grid installation of one jointly owned pole on Whittemore Road. Jeff, you want to explain this one because Butch is under the weather.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair, thank you. As you know, we're reconstructing the Fisk Hill Water Pump Station. As part of that project, we need to get additional power to the site on Whittemore Road. At your last meeting, you approved a license for one of the poles or the actual power hookup to the site, on the site. This is a hearing to install an additional pole to accommodate the three-phase power to the site. So this is at our request, the town's request, and they need to set a pole to do it. The DPW director supports the request. And it's unfortunate he's not with us this evening.
Any questions from the board?
Did you want me to read the notice or the hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mike, please.
Okay. National Grid has made a petition to the Sturbridge Board of Selectmen to install one structural offset pole on Whittemore Road, beginning at a point approximately 665 feet from northwest of the center line of the intersection of Fisk Hill Road, and continuing approximately 20 feet in the south direction. Installing one pole with an anchor to serve the new pump house at 65 Whittemore Road. The poll hearing will take place on Monday, March 15th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. The Sturbridge Board of Selectmen are consistent with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, to hold the public hearing virtually. Details regarding how to virtually access a meeting can be found on the town website at www.sturbridge.gov/town administrator/pages how to access virtual meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, no questions from the board? Okay, there wasn't anyone on the line, Jeff?
Let me check. Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak at the public hearing for the National Grid poll hearing for Whittemore Road? Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the National Grid poll hearing for Whittemore Road? There's no one to speak, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a motion then to close the poll hearing?
So moved.
So moved, Mike. No, second.
I'll second Mike and Chase's motion.
Okay. Mike, how do you vote?
Yes. Mike.
All right, hold on. Mary Dowling? That's you.
Hold on, I want to try to use my computer. Can you hear me now on my computer?
I don't know. I got to turn off. I'm going to mute your phone.
All right.
Hold on, please. All right, try it now, Mary. We can't hear you. Mary, go ahead and say something.
Okay, I'm back on my phone. I have no idea what's wrong with the computer because it has the green light that my camera's on and I'm unmuted. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll continue to use my phone. It's not as clear.
Okay, how do you vote, Mary?
Mary, yes.
Chase?
Yes, Chase.
Ian?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, does someone want to make a motion? Ian?
I'll make the motion to. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Ian.
I'll make the motion to approve the poll.
Poll location.
Poll location.
This is Mike, and I'd like to second this, that the Director of Public Works usually has a condition that the pole that would be on Whittemore Road would be at least 5 feet from the pavement. If that's his recommendation, I'd like to include it in the approval. If it's not his recommendation, then, but I don't know if he.
Mary, you have to turn all your volume on your computer.
I did.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay. But the point I was making is 5 feet from the edge of pavement for the pole. And I second Ian's motion.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Mary?
Can I just request that everybody talk loudly? Because now that I'm using my phone, I can barely hear everybody. When I turn my computer volume down, it's like everybody's whispering. So if you could just try to talk a little louder, that would be really helpful for me.
Speaker works really good for this stuff usually.
Hey, Ian, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Chase?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next on the agenda we have department reports. First up is the police department. Chief Dessert, good evening.
Good evening to you and fellow board members. Start with January's report. Go through it. If you have any questions, just let me know. Business as usual. January, we did interview our emergency management coordinator after Dave Dominguez resigned, and we were able to get Matthew White. He is up and running now due to your appointment, which is good. Some training. We were able to send now the entire sworn members of the department to fair and impartial policing. That was a training put on in Southbridge, so that was pretty good. We got the whole entire department through. Other than that, business as usual through January. Do you have any questions for January?
Anyone? If not,
All right, so we'll move on to February. February, same thing, business as usual. We did do a drive-by for the oldest resident in the community that was assisted or organized with Russell Chamberlain asked us to help out, so we participated in a parade with that, and it was a successful parade, so we were honored to participate in that event for one of our oldest community members. Training, something operational. We did take possession of a new signboard that you'll see out on our streets that calculate speed, give us back reports. Sergeant Bateman attended all traffic solutions webinars, training. The new signboard that we can remotely tap into, change speed limits, find isolated areas. And one of the first places we deployed it was Shattuck Road due to the complaints up there. We've been tracking the speed up there. No complaints. In fact, I was approached by a resident up there last week when I went up around 6:15 in the morning, 6:30. A woman walked up to me. I believe she was from 52 Shattuck, and just expressed her how thankful she was that we were up there and that our presence has made a significant impact with the tractors, the logging trucks going up and down as far as not operating, because we have had no violations of operating before 7 a.m. and no violations of speeding. So other than that, February was pretty much straightforward. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chief, I just wanted to let you know and let the rest of the board know that you must have been watching our last meeting regarding Shattuck Road, because I had a resident contact me that you were there at 5 in the morning the next morning yourself, keeping an eye on things. And I think the board should know that, and I think the people of Shattuck Road should know that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I was up there. I went up there several times just to drive through and see what was going on. So thank you for that. Yes, I was watching the meeting.
okay, any other questions or comments? Mike?
Yeah. I also got some positive feedback about the police on Shattuck Road, and I'd like the chief to know that the public is very supportive of your efforts there. I do have a question about, of course, there's no boat inspection, on the ponds or anything in January or February, but do we check the ice? I was out ice fishing on Big Alum a couple of weeks ago, and there were a lot of people out on the ice. So do we ever do anything on ice to check, just to show presence or whatever?
Generally, no. We really have no means besides walking out on the ice to do any type of patrols out there. However, if we got any complaints, which I don't recall any, but if we get any complaints of loud people or people maybe driving snowmobiles or something, we'll certainly address those complaints as we come out. But we don't proactively go out and check fishing license or anything.
No, okay. Yeah, I know we do boat stuff, yep. So I didn't know if we do anything on that.
Hopefully we do the boat soon, because I'm ready for the warm weather.
You and everyone else. Hey, Mary, did you have your hand up?
I just was going to chime in that the Shattuck Road is a road I regularly walk and run on. And, the tractor trailers, I saw one or two, and they were going very slowly. So I think they got the message. So I also wanted to chime in that I'm on that road, and it seems like they were following the speed limit. So it's good.
Okay, Chief, I just have a question that I've been meaning to ask before. With the school schedule being partly remote and partly in, how has that affected the working hours of the resource officers we have?
Our SROs are continuously up at the school because despite the fact that sometimes there's less students, we still deploy our officers the same way. They're up there during the week constantly because there's always students up there. In fact, I met briefly with the Principal Pelly this past week, and they're talking about getting ready to open up. So we're trying to develop a traffic plan because we're anticipating possible congestion coming in and out of the school. So I'll be working with our school resource officer and probably a day shift supervisor to make sure we come up with a plan to try to mitigate the traffic as much as we can, because we think a lot of parents may not want to put their kids on a school bus. So, but to answer your question, they've both been up there. Both Officer Dane has been up to the junior high and high school, and Officer Murray has been at Burgess full time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the chief? Ian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I went to the Cops and Coffee event that was at the Sturbridge Coffee House, and all of Earl's guys were up there along with the state police, and it seemed like a good event. The feedback looked good. All the guys said that everybody came out was in support, and just wanted to say good job on that.
Thanks. That will be in next month's report, but yep, that was one of our first community policing initiatives that we've had in a little while, where we were in public, because we were able to go outside in public and distance ourselves a little bit. But we teamed up with the state police, had our drone up there, had a couple different canines, a bomb sniffing dog, and I believe it was a accelerant sniffing canine up there as well. So it was a good team effort between both of us, and yes, there was a good turnout. The weather happened to be good. That was last week when the weather was fairly decent out, so that was a good, very, very good event for us.
Okay, anything else from the board? Anything else, Chief?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you for coming in, and have a good night.
I think I got to stay on for a couple other things regarding on your action items, in case you guys have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I'll be
Okay,
here.
next week we have the fire department, Chief Gosso.
Good evening, everyone. You have reports from January and from February. One item note I have for January, Chief Dessert and I accepted a donation from Ocean State Job Lot of 2 full pallets of personal protective equipment. I believe the board heard that last month to accept that donation. I did send a letter of thanks, which I believe you have a copy of, on behalf of the chief and myself, as well as the town. January is trending a bit, call-wise, a bit above last year. If that trend continues, we'll probably be between 200 and 300 calls more than last year's call volume. However, it's still early in the year, so I expect some fluctuation in that. Any questions on January?
It doesn't look it.
Okay, February, we were notified by the Department of Fire Services that we had been granted a SAFE grant award of just over $7,000. That goes toward our SAFE and senior SAFE programs. And with the retirement of Mary Lou Volpe, I have appointed firefighters Patrick Normandin and Stephen Joyce to take the reins on SAFE and senior SAFE. So I know they have been doing virtual, they've been reaching out virtually to the schools, and they're putting programs together to continue their outreach for that. I've also been working with the health department and Jeff to get some vaccines distributed to some of our homebound residents. Ken Lacey and I had a conversation today, and it looks like we're going to be able to finish that up this week, possibly Wednesday afternoon. For the few residents that are unable to get to a vaccine site, we're going to work with the health department to get the vaccines to them and their residents. And then I will have a paramedic stay with them for the required observation time, just to make sure there's no issues with reactions to the shot. With regard to calls in February, we did have 2 structure fires. One of them was very minor in nature. It was caused by an insulation company blowing insulation into an attic. They contacted a screw. They contacted a wire with a screw gun, and it arced and caught the insulation on fire. They worked quickly to extinguish it. We got there, the fire had been out, and we were thankful that didn't extend. The other fire we had was on Park Circle. It was a mobile home fire. The residents did sustain an extensive amount of damage. No one was home at the time. No one was injured. There was a dog in the house that we were able to secure and reunite with the family when they got home. But they were displaced, and the Red Cross was working with them. The cause of that fire is still under investigation. Again, February is trending a bit higher than last year with regard to call volume. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions from the board? Mary?
I just have a couple. One's a comment. I just want to say excellent news about vaccinating the homebound, because there were a couple of residents that did reach out, and they were quite distraught that Sturbridge wasn't able to do it, and other towns were. And I did assure them that we were working on it. So you may even hear from someone in Citizens Forum. But that's very good news that we're going to be able to get the vaccines to them. So I want to thank everybody that was involved with it. And then the other question I had, okay, Chief, this is not on your report, but have you been working on getting the data to us on the salary comparison for a deputy fire chief?
Yeah,
and when can we?
I believe Jeff has that. Maybe he can speak to it.
Yes, we're going to actually go to the Personnel Committee and rate the position. That way we have both the rating and the salary study together, and that'll provide where it is in their salary scale.
Oh, okay, and so is that going to be a topic for our first April visit, April meeting?
We expect so.
Anything else, Mike?
I think in the past, one of the selectmen, it wasn't me, had asked for when you do your major incident types by month report, where you have a table of how many hazardous conditions, no fire, and all that, and rescue emergency calls and breakdown. They had one of the selectmen, and I had agreed, but never said anything, that if you could compare it to a month a year ago, or do a year-to-date range for, so that we can compare how you're doing this year to how you did last year, so we can kind of tell if you need additional resources, or
Sure.
that sort of question. The police report kind of does that sort of thing. So somebody had asked that for that kind of comparison in the past, and
yep.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else, Chief?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question.
Mary?
Jeff, after you go to the Personnel Committee, we're going to get how they rate it, but will we also get the survey of the data that the chief actually gave Personnel to do?
Sure. We can give that to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next we have Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report's in front of you. Some good news on the Champeau Road Bridge. They're moving along with both the design plans and the right-of-way plans. You've been given copies of those for your review. Old Sturbridge Village is planning their 75th anniversary and would like to somehow commemorate the town's partnership for 75 years. So they're looking for feedback on what possibly that could be, how to memorialize that partnership in their 75th anniversary program. So if you give that some thought and maybe shoot me an email with some thoughts, that'd be appreciated. We're also working with them for some banners on the poles. We've made contact with National Grid and Verizon about getting licenses to put some banners up on the poles commemorating their 75th anniversary. So we'll be working through that. Also, Juneteenth is now a state holiday, so we'll be working on what's required of us as a town to recognize that holiday with our employees. So we'll be working through that over the next month or two. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the report.
Really?
Oh, that's excellent that the OSB wants to work with the town to commemorate their anniversary. We'll certainly give our ideas, but maybe Terry could, because he's got a background in economic development and tourism, might share some ideas of his with the selectmen, and then we can also kind of talk about those ideas and see if we agree, disagree. I mean, I feel like it's kind of his area of expertise and kind of what that position does. So maybe he could share his thoughts with us.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, next on the agenda we have a presentation by HR USA on the compensation and classification plan. Jeff?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm gonna make Jo Ellen, let her introduce herself and make her the presenter. Jo Ellen, why don't you say hi to the group?
Hi, good evening. It's very nice to see you all tonight, and I'm happy to present to you. I am Jo Ellen Catamortori, the CEO of GovHR USA, and I was the project manager when we completed your classification and compensation study.
There's a PowerPoint that she'd like to present, if that's acceptable to the board, to kind of go over the project.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Great. So again, thank you for having me and for engaging us to help you with this classification and compensation study. What I'm going to do tonight is give an overview of the study. When I'm referring to some of the tables in the report, I'll let you know what page that I'm referring to, either if you have it as the PDF or in a printed version. So you can follow along when I get to some of those areas. But tonight, these are the items that I would like to highlight for you. First is the scope of work, what we were asked to do for the town, for the class and comp study, the job evaluation process, which resulted in internal equity for the town, the proposed classification plan, the list of positions that were covered by the study, the salary survey that we conducted on behalf of the town and the results of that, the proposed compensation plan, that's also a table in the report, how you would implement the study going forward, how you would administer it going forward, and then, of course, any questions that I'd be happy to answer. So the scope of work and the process. Initially, I had some conversations with the town just about what the class and comp study was, and I asked the town for a lot of information up front. So I needed copies of pay scales, job description, organizational chart, anything that related to your compensation. And we also did look at some part-time positions, so I asked for that information as well. So it was really, at the very beginning, the prep was just, what do I need from you? What do I need the town to help me with regard to the study? So for example, when we drafted the salary survey, it was approved by the town. You know, we put all the different positions in. We defined them. The town read it, approved it. We asked the town to send that out, and then the results came back to us. We asked the town to help us set up the interviews for the employees when we came out. So there were some things that we needed the town to assist us with as far as process was concerned. And every client that we work with, we request the same things of. We then went through a process of determining communities that were comparable to Sturbridge so we could send out the salary survey and request information. We distributed all of those materials, and then I came out on site, and we had several employee meetings where I went through the process of the study. I handed out materials to the employees to complete because it was really important that the employees gave feedback with regard to their positions so we could classify them. And I presented to the employees. I answered any questions that they had at the time. And then we went through a job evaluation process and developed a classification plan. So while we went through that process, we came back out on site. I came with my colleagues, my fellow colleagues, and we interviewed employees, at least one person with every job title, in order to really understand how the work is performed in Sturbridge. At the same time, we sent out the salary survey. We got the results of the salary survey. We analyzed the salary survey. And made sure that everything that was submitted to us was really a comparable position. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we sent a final report to the town, which is what you have. And I've made a presentation to the employees, and now tonight I'm making a presentation to you. And then once we get the final feedback from the town, we'll finalize the report.
Just a quick correction, you made a presentation to the Personnel Committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, you're right. And thank you. And I'm actually going to be on hand when they meet, when they classify the deputy's job, just so, you know, it's important for me that the town is comfortable in using the system that we created, because if it's maintained and administered going forward, it will last you a very long time. You know, I mean, upwards of 5 to 10 years before you may have to look at doing something like this again. So in the job evaluation process, we looked at 49 positions in the town, and the factors that are on the screen here are what we evaluate. So when you look at these factors ranging from education and work experience all the way down to work environment, working conditions, and the use of technology, every position covered by the study had a response to every one of these questions. So for example, with education, we said, you know, if you left your job tomorrow, if you won the lottery, moved to Florida, and someone had to come in to fill your shoes, what's the minimum education needed to perform your work? And we went through that for each one of these factors. So that's were the different factors in the job evaluation. When the employees completed that, all of the surveys were sent back to us. And then we came back on site, as I mentioned, and had interviews with employees, and we talked with one employee within each position. You know, if we told everyone, if you have your own job title, you can't get out of it, you have to have an interview, and that's what we did. And the important thing to know about job evaluation, there's a few things. One is, an employee fills out a survey, and it's the perception that he or she or the person has of their own work. So the next piece is the supervisor gets to look at what the employee wrote down, and they can say, yes, I agree with everything, or they can comment. But the supervisor was not supposed to change anything that the employee wrote down. And then the third part of this evaluation is when the consultants come in and look at everything. So not only do we look at job descriptions, but we look at what the employee wrote down in the questionnaire. We look at what the supervisor wrote down, if in fact they wanted to give any comment. And then we conducted that interview and looked at everything, and we made a determination as to where the positions should be classified going forward. And when we get to that point, I'll refer to the classification plan in the report, and you can see how it's established. So the jobs were based on the information we received by the town, and again, as a result of the on-site interviews. But what is good about job evaluation for Sturbridge is, you know, I'm sure you'll hear people say this, is if I was doing the same job in Charlton, then I would not be doing this duty. You know, so when we look at the jobs in Sturbridge, we actually can drill down into what the employees are doing, and then we can give the job value based on how the work is performed in Sturbridge. So all of those little nuances that employees know about from town to town, we take that into account when we're evaluating the job, which is important for employees because sometimes their jobs are more complex than they would be in another community, so they're rated in the classification plan, taking that into account. Some of the jobs were reclassified as a result of that, and when I go over the classification plan with you, I'll explain that. So the classification plan is on page 24 of the printed report, if you have it printed, and on page 27 of the PDF. So if you look at that, you'll see that it says the current title, the proposed title, and then we have the skill range for the job, we have the new grade. But if you see a proposed title, it's either because it's a better title in the market or it's because the job was reclassified. So for example, the jobs of the facilities coordinator was reclassified to a facilities manager. There were 3 administrative assistant positions that were reclassified, 2 into executive assistants, 1 for police, 1 for town administrator, and 1 was reclassified to a permit technician. And that's because that job was different than an administrative assistant. So it was actually reclassified, and those jobs were set apart from the remaining administrative assistants in the town. And then the final clerical positions that were also, the title was changed, were some that had clerk in the title. And we don't see that title very often anymore, so we recommended the title of office assistant. So that's all listed on the classification plan. Again, if you have a print copy, it's on page 24, and if it's a PDF version, it's on page 27. The next part of the study was looking at comparable communities. So when we are asking other communities for salary information, it's really important that we get information from communities that we have determined are comparable to Sturbridge. So you would not want to compare to Worcester or Pittsfield or Boston, you know, either communities that are very far away, much larger. That would not be desirable. So what we did was we went through a comparable analysis, and the analysis is in Appendix B of the report, so it is attached, it's after the narrative in the table. And we look at these factors that are listed here. So we go to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue where we have source data. So if anybody wanted to look it up, you could. And on the first part of the analysis, when we develop the comparable communities in Appendix B, we talk about our sources and where we got the information. So you can see from this list, other than population and proximity to Sturbridge, the remaining 6 factors are financial factors. So we really want to weigh heavily on that analysis because I wouldn't want to recommend a pay range to you to consider, you know, accepting if it was not based on ability to pay. So that's why we go through this analysis and present it to the town for consideration. So we did that, and as a result of it, these are the communities that we determined to be most comparable to Sturbridge. And the reason why some of those have asterisks are those are the ones that responded or we got information from them. They either gave us their pay plan or they actually responded directly. So we had several respond. We had enough data in order for us to conduct our analysis. But the towns were Belchertown, Charlton, Douglas, Millbury, Northbridge, Oxford, Palmer, Rutland, Spencer, Sterling, Sutton, Uxbridge, Upton, Webster, West Boylston, and Wilbraham. So when we conduct the salary survey, there's a few points I want to highlight for you. First, as I mentioned, you know, the reason why we get job descriptions is not only do we want to know how, you know, the work that people perform in Sturbridge, but we also use those to create the survey instrument. So when we send it out to the comparable communities, we define the position. So we wouldn't just put a title in the survey because other communities may not use the same title, so we want to try and make sure we're getting the exact match data. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we review the data once we get it back. And that's really important because sometimes communities will give us back a position that we know is not comparable. And an example of that is of the finance director's position. So if you look on page 61 of the printed report or 64 of the PDF, you'll see that that's the salary data we received for the finance director. So when you look at that page, you'll see that some of the data is highlighted in green. And the reason for that is because we looked at that data and we said, well, that's not a comparable position. And most of them are either treasurer and collector. So the finance director is a higher level position in the town than those in other communities. And so the first page, page 61, if you have the printed report, says finance director, and you'll see some highlighting. The very next page in the report has finance director, has all of the data. It has the word edited behind the title, and then any of the data that we did not agree with is removed. So the reason why we do that is we want you to be able to see when there's data that we don't feel is comparable. Sometimes we have to call communities back to clarify, but most of the time we know based on our experience. So we go through all of the data and we look at it very particularly, and then if we don't agree with it, we highlight it and we remove it. We also ask for a title if it's different. So some communities use different titles for similar positions, and that information's in that appendix as well, because we want to try and use as much data as possible. You know, we take a lot of time to develop the survey instrument, so we want to make sure that whatever people are giving back to us, you know, those communities are telling us, yes, this is our comparable position, and we only take the data out if we really know that it's not. The other thing that we like to use is salary range data when we're looking at salary survey information. And the reason for that is if you only have an actual salary, then it's not a good gauge of the market. You know, an actual salary, we don't know when the person was hired and we don't know under what market conditions. So if there's a salary range established, it's a better gauge of the market. So in your study, we use salary range data. And then the last point is that when we complete a salary survey, we look at the data during a snapshot in time. So when we collected your data, you know, regardless of what fiscal year it was in, if an employee from Sturbridge was applying for a job in another community, then that's the salary that's available at that time. So your data has subsequently been adjusted for the current fiscal year, but we did the salary survey and we just did it during a snapshot of time. So the Appendix C has all of the raw data if you want to take a look at it. And if you have any questions about it, please let me know. So then we have the proposed compensation plan, and that's table 2 in the report. So if you look at page 26 of the printed version or 29 of the PDF, you'll see what we call the comprehensive table. And on the left side of the table, you'll see the job title, you'll see the grade of the position that we've assigned it to, the skill level, which is the range of points that it had in order to get into that grade. And then you'll see salary survey data. We calculated it for the town at the 60th percentile, the 70th percentile. We have in the current salary range, and then the recommendation, we had it both ways, but the town has gone with the 70th percentile. And what that means is at the 70th percentile, 30% of the communities pay more for the same position and 70% pay less. Okay, so that's what's on that table too. The reason why we call it the comprehensive table is because it pulls in the classification plan that's on table 1 and the compensation data. So it pulls it all together. The columns to the furthest to the right are the proposed salary ranges. So there's 2 numbers, a minimum and a maximum, and those 2 numbers apply to all of the positions at the grade.
I just have
The table 3.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just have a quick comment if I could. Mary, you're muted.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So from what Joellen just said on that chart with the proposed salary ranges, those were based upon the original salary data for last fiscal year. You have a spreadsheet that is updated with the adjustments we made for 2021's adjustment. So in July of 2020, a 1.25% COLA was distributed to the non-union employees. So I've taken that data on those salary ranges and adjusted it for the 1.25 COLA. So every year that there's a COLA or an adjustment, you'll do the same thing, and that's how that plan is maintained over time. So the one that's in the book is the original data. You have a separate spreadsheet that's adjusted that 70 percentile range with an additional 1.25% for the COLA awarded in this year. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So table 3 in the report is the pay ranges that we've established for each grade. Table 3 is on page 28 of the printed version, 31 of the PDF, and you'll just different pay bands, which I'll talk about in a second, and the minimum and maximum proposed ranges. But then following those tables, you'll see your actual pay plan as we calculated it. And grades 1 through 6, I think, or 7, are step-based, meaning they're defined increment, and the remaining are an open range. So the positions that are, you know, higher level positions of the organization, based on merit, they're in an open range. So the plan that was calculated for you is what we'd call a hybrid plan, because it had both defined increment or steps and open range. And then the last point here is we were also asked to look at some of those, you know, other positions. All of the positions on table 3A, which is on page 31 of the printed and 34 of the PDF, we kind of grouped them together into the categories of stipend, inspection, and hourly. We got some information from the market and made some recommendations on how you want to structure that pay. You don't want to put those positions in your classification plan, because you wouldn't fill them even on a part-time basis. You know, the only positions that should be in your classification plan are positions that are either going to be full-time or would be a part-time position, but based on the full-time job. And so the ones that are in table 3A are completely different. So that's why they appear on a separate schedule. So when you look at the compensation plan, there's, the classification plan, or compensation, I guess both. There's 3 bands. So grades 1 through 3 are administrative and technical positions. Grades 4 through 6 are supervisors and advanced technical, and then grades 7 through 11 are the directors and senior managers. And remember, the 7 through 11 have open range. Grades 1 through 6 have defined increment or steps. There's 2 things, 2 points about how you create a compensation plan. The first is the gradation, and the second is the range spread. So the gradation is the difference in starting pay at the minimum. So I didn't change the slide. I apologize for the time. All proposed ranges are not open. There's some step and some open, but there is a 7.5% gradation between grades 1 through 6, a 12.5% gradation between grades 7 through 11. So what that means is grade 2, the starting pay is 7.5% higher than the starting pay for grade 1. Grade 3 starting pay is 7.5% higher than grade 2, and so on. So the gradation's different. It's 7.5%, 1 through 6, 12.5%, 7 through 11. And then the range spread is the difference between the minimum pay for the range and the maximum pay for the range. So grades 1 through 6 have a 35% spread from minimum to maximum, and then the remaining grades, 7 through 11, have 40%. So how would you implement this going forward? So what we always recommend is if an employee's current pay is below the minimum for the recommended range, that the person should be brought up to the minimum. you know, sometimes there's a plan, and sometimes it happens all at once, sometimes it's phased over time. Then if somebody's current pay is within the range, we recommend that they either get slotted in if they're open in the open range at their current pay, or if they're going into the step pay, that, you know, grades 1 through 6, that they go into the closest pay without losing money. So sometimes people will say, well, you know, I was at the top of the range before the study, and now I'm in the middle of the range. So I really want to be at the top of the range. That's not the case. You know, if somebody's pay falls in the range, that means they've been being compensated at the market rate. If they're anywhere in that range, they're being compensated at the market rate. What it means is over time, they may have more ability to grow their salary because they have additional steps or they have a ways to go in the open range. So that's a good thing. And then the last one, and I honestly don't recall if anybody was outside the range, what we would recommend is that pay be frozen because eventually the range will catch up. And we don't want anyone to lose any pay because sometimes the market value of the position changes or it's reclassified. So it's not the incumbent employee's fault if that happens. And then how would you administer this going forward? So on the classification side, you know, really what we recommend that the town establish as a procedure is to review the positions every year to make sure that they're still relevant. You know, sometimes laws change, sometimes positions aren't needed anymore, sometimes there's responsibilities added or taken away. So every year if the Personnel Board is kind of, you know, reviewing positions, say, okay, everything looks good, that's a positive thing. And then the town now has the tool that we use to evaluate the jobs. So your deputy fire chief is a good example. The JAQ, the Job Analysis Questionnaire that we use for every one of those 49 positions, it could be filled out for that position, given to the Personnel Board. The Personnel Board can go through the tool that we gave them to say, okay, we're doing this whole thing, and I'm just going to pick a number. It adds up to 600 points. That's the value of the job in our organization based on the questionnaire that was filled out. Then what you do is you go to the classification plan and you find a grade that has the range that encompasses the 600 points, and that's where the position should go. And then once you know that, there's already a corresponding salary range set up for that grade. So all the town needs to do going forward when they're adjusting positions is fill out the questionnaire, figure out what the aggregate score is, and then slot it into the classification plan, and the compensation range is already established. And then on the compensation side, you know, if the town is surveying the comps every year to determine, you know, what they're doing for a general increase, and the town administrator just said that the pay plan was adjusted by 1.25% for the current fiscal year, then if you do that every year, you're going to keep up with the market. So, and it may vary from year to year, but if there's a regular practice to see what the comps are doing and making some type of adjustment, you can take the average, whatever you want to do, then you're going to keep pace with the market, and that's a good thing for the employees. So I would recommend you do that. You determine, you know, what you want to adjust the ranges by, and then make that adjustment. And then the last thing you would do is pay increases for the employees. So that was an overview of everything. Yeah. And so I will stop sharing my screen, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mary? Where is she? Oh, we lost her picture. I just wanted to look at her. But
she's in the top right.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm sorry. Joel and Mary Val, thank you for coming. I was one of the select people that kind of pushed to get a presentation to us as well. And so I want to, because I know you already gave a presentation to the Personnel Committee. But I want to thank you for indulging me. I did have a couple of questions. You explained it, but just help me a little bit more with some of it. When you talk about your assumptions, so the middle bullet, when they're already within the classification, their current pay. So we're already competitive, if you will. We're in the market when you look at the other towns. They would move to the closest step. So they don't lose ground. We're already competitive with them, and then they move along on the step. So that's great. What I have a little hard time reconciling is the first bullet. Those are the people whose present pay is below the minimum of the pay range. So those are positions that the town wasn't competitive with, and it was helpful for us to engage in this, so now we know. They weren't competitive. They're only going to move to the lowest step in their new range. And I guess what I have a hard time with is there's no recognition for longevity in terms of the step. I understand the grade. The grade is determined by the, you know, that merit system, the position, the qualifications, the experience, and supervisory staff, and that sort of thing. But I have a hard time with any employee where we're not putting them at that step. And so if you can explain that, and also later in your document, you explain when we hire new people that normally we would start at step one, you know, within the appropriate classification, but that background and experience or backgrounds and qualifications could be considerations for putting them at a different step. So that would include experience. So I guess what I'm saying is I worry about retention for those that, you know, we're already underpaying them, and we would start them at step one. We're not going to start them at a step that reflects their years of service with Sturbridge. Let's say one of those employees left, and I don't know that they will. I think people are happy with Sturbridge. But let's say they left. Then we go out in the market. We advertise the position. Now we're able to look at years of experience with another town, and possibly now, let's say we take that position and we put them at step 4 because they've had, you know, 5 years of experience with the town of Charleston. And now we're putting them at step 5. We lost our employee, and they were at step 1. So, you know, how do I reconcile not recognizing at all their years of service when they were below grade to start with? So that's one of my questions. Then I have a couple more.
Okay, sure. So that is a very real concern that we've had from clients in the past. I've had situations where we've had new and 20-year employees below the minimum. So on page, what is it? I'm a little small. 23 of the PDF. So hold on. I have to make this a little bit bigger. 19 of the printed report, if you have it printed, number 3 that starts on page 19 addresses that exact issue. So there have been times when this has occurred and the client says, well, what should we do for the people that are at the minimum and they've been here for, you know, 15 years? That doesn't seem fair that somebody who started, you know, a year ago is at the same pay. So one solution, and you can make it up any way you want, but this is my recommendation, is you'll see on the top of page 20 in the written, or 23 of the PDF, or yeah, you can make an adjustment based on length of service at implementation. But yeah, you know, if you do that, you have to do it for everybody. You have, of course, you know, pay equity. You have, especially in Massachusetts, you want to make sure you treat everybody the same. So what the recommendation there is, if an employee has been with the town for maybe 1 to 3 years, they go to the minimum. You know, they're still a fairly new employee, so they're going to get bumped up to the minimum. And then what I have here, you know, you could change it to 1 extra step, 2 extra steps, 3 extra steps, or percentage. What I have here is if they've been there for over 3 up to 8, you give them an extra percent or maybe an extra step. Over 8 up to 15, they get 2% or maybe 2 steps, and then over 15, they get 3% or maybe 3 steps. So there's a way to do it to recognize what you're getting at. And so I can certainly help the town with that, but there is something in the report that addresses that issue.
Okay, I saw that. I don't know the way the rest of the board feels. This was me. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So that's how you recommend doing it, as opposed to, which may be cost prohibitive, what I'm going to say.
by looking at their years of service and saying, okay, you know, you've been here 3 years, you start at step 3 within grade 5 or whatever, that would be too much. You think that a percentage increase?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
okay.
What we did through this was we looked at the market and created a class and cost plan for you. And some of the positions, this hasn't been done in a really long time. You know, we're just not in step with the market. So, you know, if somebody's going to minimum, that they're getting brought up to market. That's a good thing. And then they're going to have years of salary growth. You know, the question you're raising is if 2 people are brought to minimum and one has 10 years of service and one has 2 years of service, you may want to differentiate for the person that has 10. But just based on a nudge into the system, not like they're going to go halfway through. I would not recommend that. So I would set up a methodology that everybody can agree with and apply it across the board.
All right, and then I just have a thank you. That's very helpful for me. Then I had another question. You know, and again, these aren't people coming to me as much as me looking and saying, oh, I don't know if this totally fits right. What page is where you had all the positions and what grade they're on?
The table, the classification plan starts on page 24 of the written and 27 of the PDF.
Okay. Oh, yeah, thank you. So just a couple, I know you explained why some of the titles were changed, but for example, the IT specialist to IT administrator, I was just wondering, because see, to me, and I'm not saying this happened, but when I see specialist, I see a higher level of training than someone who's an administrator. Is that because that position doesn't require a specialist, or is that, am I just reading that wrong? You know, I'm just saying, when that kind of jumps out at me, I'm like, oh, we went from being a technology specialist to an administrator, and I wondered why that title change happened.
And I apologize, I missed that one because I was doing them off the top of my head because I had my screen in front of me with PowerPoint. No, that job, it still has the requirements of the specialist, but it also has overall coordination of IT functions. So the IT administrator job is a more comprehensive title than a specialist.
Oh, okay. So it's okay. So thank you for clarifying that.
So when some of these jobs were reclassified, like I mentioned, and others we recommended a title change. So both the facilities coordinator and the IT administrator are title changes, and the office assistant, and the library assistant are title changes. The permit technician and the executive assistants are reclassifications, meaning if they remained as administrative assistants, they would have been in grade 3, but we thought that they should be at a higher grade, so we recommended that they be in a higher grade based on the work that they're performing, and then we also recommended a title change because you can't have the same title for positions in 2 different grades.
Okay, and then I had just got a couple of other questions on certain positions. So I'm going to pull one out just because the assistant town clerk, and again, the clerk's office did not come to me. The assistant town clerk, I happened to be on the finance committee when this position was created. It was created under our former town clerk, and she came with all her documentation and said, this is not an administrative assistant position. She's not a town clerk assistant. She doesn't assist me. She has all the duties and responsibilities under mass law that I have. So the way she presented it and the way it passed, town meeting and stuff was, if I'm on vacation, this person is going to do exactly what I do. She can certify things. She can do everything that I do in my absence. She's not my administrative assistant in the sense that she has limited powers. And so that particular grade surprised me. Like, for example, the town clerk is an elected position. And so when that clerk runs for re-election, the assistant town clerk assumes the entire job of running the election. And when I looked at the grade 4 and even how you described it this evening, it was very much described as an administrative assistant. And to me, I look at that position as being more like a deputy town clerk, at least with respect to how it was presented to us years ago. I mean, I want to say 10 years ago when the position was created. And so I don't, you know, I don't know where to go with that. I don't know if maybe that person put it down in the same way, but I think that term assistant, town clerk, makes it look like an administrative assistant rather than that person being able to perform all the duties of a town clerk. So I don't know, it's, you know, that's just where I'm coming from, going back to when the position was created. And I noticed like the town clerk's a grade 8 and that one's like a 4. So I don't know, you know, like again, I don't know how that questionnaire was answered. Sometimes I wonder, and you do this obviously for a living, but does it ever happen if somebody doesn't present their, you know, in the interview process, if they're not presenting exactly what they do? I wonder, you know, how, you know, maybe one person is really good at presenting a resume and then the other person isn't. And then if that ends up playing a role in where their ultimate grade ends up being, that's all. Because that kind of jumped out at me. And so I don't know where, you know, maybe if you just reviewed it, if you come back and say, oh, that is what that position is. It's just that if our town clerk left for a month, the assistant town clerk is supposed to be able to do everything the town clerk does. It's not an assistant position. So, and then my other question was, the town accountant. You know, when I think of, I can't wait to turn over my materials to my town accountant, to my personal accountant when it's tax season, because I feel like it's such an expertise that's required. And that one, that particular grade also, I don't know, that just surprised me where that particular position was graded. So I don't know if, you know, maybe an explanation, or just not so much an explanation, but just to, you know, I know when I look at your summary, you said, you know, we'll present it to town leaders and then we'll go back and we'll look at your comments. So just maybe just double checking that that's the right approach.
Can I?
And then, but I wanted to, I forgot one thing. On the assistant town, when I looked at the salary, what kind of buttressed my position too is currently, and I don't think it's true of other positions, that position is lower than the lowest on the 60th percentile in terms of the survey. And I think what happens is that in those other towns, they are looking at the assistant town clerk in a way that Sturbridge hasn't been looking at that position. It's not even, like I said, it's not even the lowest of the 60th in terms of those 16 or 12 towns. And I think because those other towns recognize that it is town clerk number 2, if you will. I mean, I know the town clerk supervises that position, but the pay also reflects, to me, the fact that Sturbridge doesn't really recognize very well those duties and responsibilities like other towns do. So those were my concerns with the not the way you did it, but just when I looked at this. And I thank you very much. I saw the 1%, but I wasn't sure if that was appropriate for those people who are already below market. And I'm just going to say for the record, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I support making some kind of an adjustment at the outset on those positions that were already under market to recognize that they've been under market for a while, and the ones that aren't under market are going to move along, and the ones that are under market are starting all over again, regardless of their years of service. So I think some type of an adjustment would be very equitable thing to do. Yes?
Just a comment on the town accountant position. And I think that's the one you were talking about, Mary, one of them?
One of.
Yeah. There was an error in the JAQ that was processed. So I've asked the town accountant to redo the JAQ and we're going to send that to personnel at their next meeting for a regrading.
Oh, okay, so there was a mistake in that process.
In the
Okay.
original,
And
and on the town clerk, assistant town clerk, we took the job description that was available and approved by the board and applied the criteria to that and the JQ and everything else. So if the town had a higher expectation, and still does, we can always revise the job description to accommodate those higher expectations.
yeah, I don't have the job description in front of me. I just know that that person has to be able to run elections on a regular basis when the town is up for re-election. Mm-hmm. So that would be helpful. And the last thing, and this wasn't in the report, Joe Ellen, but I also want to state that I think the Personnel Committee took two positions, and I could, I'm wrong, but two of the positions that you recommend that were below the minimum pay of the range, you recommend should be raised to the minimum of the range. And I think there were two positions that the Personnel Committee didn't move to the minimum. And I just want to say, I don't think we can pick and choose like that. If they're supposed to be in a grade, then they should start at step one of that grade. And an adjustment if they've been here for years of service. I don't know if they have or not. But I know that the tourist coordinator and economic development person and the recreation director were both recommended at personnel to start lower than their grade. And I just, for the record, I just can't support that. I mean, if we're gonna put them in a certain grade, then they should start at step one in that grade. And if they've had X amount of years of service, personally, I think they also should get the 1%. I know one position is now being filled by somebody relatively new, so that probably wouldn't affect one position, but I think it would affect the other one.
I'll just say something there. You know, sometimes it would be ideal if you could do that, but I have had clients that have had to phase implementation for mostly related to budget. So I don't know exactly what, you know, you're doing internally there, but that's sometimes it's a July 1, January 1, just to spread out the cost. Sometimes it's over 2 years. So I've seen that before. It's certainly not ideal, but the objective is to get somebody to that minimum. So you know, you guys know your situation there better than I do, but I have had that happen before when they just had to stay. You know, okay. And on the assistant clerk too, you know, that we had the position. I don't recall if there were comments, but as the town administrator said, if it needs to be looked at again, that personnel board has the tools to do that. But it is in a grade that's in the band of supervisors and advanced technical. So the administrative assistants those were those old positions, but those have been elevated to higher level jobs, as is the assistant town clerk. So maybe it's not in the right grade, but it's not in an administrative assistant grade. That's an executive assistant it's a different job than an administrative assistant, as is the permit tech. So we consciously made those jobs in the second band. And then, you know, if the assistant town clerk is not graded correctly, it can be looked at again. But we went with the information that we had. Right.
You all set, Mary? No, you're muted, Mary.
Hello?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. Joe Ellen, thank you. I don't doubt that those other grade 4s are exactly, you know, we do require more expertise than, you know, the grade 3s and 2s. I don't question that. My only question was, look, for example, you know, she does a fantastic job, and an executive assistant to the police can't do what the police does. That's how I was thinking. And the permit technician does a fabulous job in building, but she's not taking the building inspector's job, whereas the assistant town clerk can do exactly what the town clerk does. That was my point on that. And thank you, those two positions, I know at least for one of them, we're talking about like $1,000. So I don't think it's cost prohibitive to bring those other two positions to step one of the grade. It's not like it would cost, you know, $10,000. I think it costs less than $1,000. And I just don't think it's very good for morale to not start them at step one. But anyway, thank you.
Okay. Mary, I think Jeff has the numbers on that. I don't think it's 1,000, right, Jeff?
For what position are we talking about?
The Recreation Director and Economic Development Tourism Coordinator.
What are you proposing starting that position at, and what would it cost to start them at step one within the grade they're supposed to be in?
To recognize those two positions at the full grade would be, for the rec commission, for the rec director, it would be roughly $11,500. For the economic and tourism coordinator, it would be roughly $10,000 difference.
And what are they being taught to, though? What is the proposed? What did the personnel committee propose lifting their salary to?
The difference between the beginning of the range and what the personnel committee adjusted it to is roughly $4,000 each.
So they're both going to be $7,000 lower than grade step one.
No.
Or are they going to be $4,000 less?
They would be $4,000.
Okay, each of them $4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can't. I want to sign on to something that just takes certain positions and puts them less than where they should be.
I understand.
So that's me.
Hey, does anyone else have questions for Joe Ellen?
Yeah.
Mike?
This is Mike, Joe Ellen, I'm very glad to see the methodology you used, and, you know, taking a real scientific approach on how to, on the classification plan, and the compensation study as well. You did bring in some data from like Monster and a few other private entities that have. How did you use that information to figure out the salary ranges?
So yes, we were asked to look at some in the private sector. So not, and I don't think it's on every position because it doesn't exist. So where we could find some, we brought it in. And, you know, when you're looking at the analysis on the salary information, you need 3 data points in order to do any analysis, right? So on, for example, on the finance director, we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data points, and then we added 3 more from the private sector, so we had 8. So unless they're significantly different, it's not going to make a difference to the bottom line. So where we could get the information, we added it in. But because there were only a few data points and we had a lot of other data for some of the positions, it doesn't significantly impact it.
And who, was it the town or did Gov recommend the 70th percentile as far as the salary ranges? Was it the town that selected that, or was that a recommendation, or?
It was the town that selected it, but my advice to my clients is if there's any way you can pay at the 60th or higher, what that ensures is that you're above average, because at the 50th percentile, that figure could be above or below average. And from the perspective of being an employer of choice, being able to recruit the best and the brightest, you want to be 60, 70, 75th percentile in order to do that. And if you really look at the numbers, it's not very expensive to go up to a higher percentile from the one before it. So the town landed on the 70th percentile.
I happen to agree because the median income in Sturbridge, in the town of Sturbridge, is right at the 70th percentile of the statewide median income. So it makes sense that we pay our employees at the 70th percentile. So I thought it was a good choice. As far as the option on the top of page 20 that allows the town to equitably increase the step or range that the employee is in due to experience or longevity in service. I don't know what is the recommendation of the personnel board or town administrator. I'm unclear as to whether everybody's just going to the bare minimum, and is there a plan like there is on the two positions that were drastically underpaid to step it up over a period of time?
Yes, you want to answer?
I think we left it last meeting with the board discussing if they wanted to make adjustments for longevity for those employees at the beginning of ranges. I think that's kind of in your hands at this point.
Okay. I'll just go on record that I support the idea of recognizing the value of longevity, and so I would be in favor of an equitable plan similar to what's on the top of page 20, to bring, even if we have to do it over a couple of years, to bring all of the employees up into the range that they should be in.
Well, wait a minute. The plan is to bring everybody into the plan is to bring everybody into the range. Actually, upon implementation, we're going to do exactly what the study says. We're going to plug the employee into the nearest highest step, and then in July, they'll get their next step, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. The question on the table is, do you recognize, in addition to that, longevity as you place the employees in their ranges or on their steps?
Jeff, if I can interject to that, the top of page 20 only applies if the person is below market. If somebody's going into the range, they're at market. The idea of giving the extra bump is for people that have been below market, or are 20 years and they're at step one. I mean, you just need to decide on what that's going to look like. But anyone else that's somewhere in the range, that's a good thing. They're going to have salary growth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone else? Mary?
I'm sorry, I just have a couple more questions. On the merit, on the higher grade, on the merit increases that will not have steps, which leaves a lot more discretion with the town, town administrator. Does your company ever make recommendations with respect to, not more than this in a given year, but not more than this, that kind of thing? Or is it, there's no, because we've always had we've always had a merit increase pretty much the same every year, so they kind of could know what they're getting. But do you ever make a recommendation saying, not to give one, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, I'm just curious, not to give one person in a grade a 10% increase and then the other person gets a 1%. Do you ever make recommendations with respect to a maximum and a minimum in terms of merit?
It depends on the market, really. I mean, some communities will have a range of maybe 1 to 3%, and so if you depending on how you do, you can get 1 to 3%, and you fund everybody at 2%, assuming that some are going to get most will probably get 2, and a few might get 3, and maybe people might get 1, you know, but it really, that's a local option. If you're comfortable with funding your merit pool and having the same amount for everyone, that's another strategy. So it just depends on what the client wants. So there's different ways to set it up. You could have a range, or you could have a flat amount. And so that's really an internal discussion, but I've seen it both ways.
What is more popular for the towns that you've done this study for? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think.
Or is it all?
I really do. I think it's mixed. I think sometimes they'll say, you know, we're going to do a general increase at a 1% merit or a 2% merit, and some might do a range. It really is mixed. And I think it depends on your culture and what people are comfortable with. You know, if most people are comfortable with the flat amount, then you might want to continue with that. If you want to differentiate it, you know, actually you would go from maybe 0 to 3%, because technically somebody could get nothing if they're not performing at a level where they warrant merit increase.
Okay, Jeff?
Just to clarify that, so the merit component, so for grades 8 through 1, they move through the range by steps, okay? So they're moving up through the range by steps, and that's how they don't fall behind the market. For the 9s, 10s, and 11s, it's their merit is moving them through the range. In the past, the merit has been a lump sum check. So that is going away, and now the merit will be the means by which those employees move through the range. So, for instance, in your budget next week, or the budget you get in the next few days, the pay plan for the 9s, 10s, and 11s consists of 2 things. There's a 2% COLA, which is through all the non-union salaries, and then the merit component is 3%, okay? So that's the mix for those positions. And my understanding of Sturbridge is that the merit pool may be 3%, but you don't distribute 10% to one and 1% to another. It's all maximum 3, right? You can't really go above the 3, but you can't go below, you know what I'm saying? So that's how that kind of works now under this plan.
Okay, so yeah, there was a concern on my part because, you know, we have great staff and everybody gets along pretty well. I wasn't sure. So within, let's just say grade 9, I don't have anything in front of me. Will everybody in grade 9 earn the same merit, or will it be distinguished by position? I guess that's what I'm asking.
They have the ability to earn the same merit, but it's based upon performance. So merit is a performance-based item. So they'll all have the ability to earn up to 3%.
All set, Mary?
I guess so. I guess I envision, I guess sometimes I feel like if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it. I just don't want to see, you know, I just don't want to envision situations where this one's saying, well, I worked just as hard, I got 2, and this one got 3, and this one, you know, and put that up against each other. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see how it pans out. I almost might be tempted to give them the same merit within a grade, but I don't know. I have some concerns about how it's going to pan out when different positions within a grade start getting different merit increases. I have some concerns about that. And then just the last thing I want to ask you, Joellen, when you came up with the comparative towns, some of them, and I know you went through I know it's based on numbers. I get it. You number crunch. But like some of the communities seem so different to me. Like, for example, let's just take like Webster and Upton. Upton, like the home values are very expensive. It's right in Hopkinton. It's outside of that, you know, belt to Boston. And I would think that the median salary is quite a bit higher. And then you look at a town like Webster, where the house values are not as big. I don't think the income's as big, just by reputation. And I wonder how they all can end up in the same comp survey.
Joel, you're muted.
Joe,
It's here.
Joe Ellen's muted.
Yeah, sorry. When you look at the totality of the factors they do, I mean, I'm looking at it, Upton, the per capita income, 51,000, 52,000. Spencer's, a little over 26,000. The equalized value per capita is higher in Upton. The total assessed value is very similar, actually, between the two. Tax levy is a little higher in Upton. The state aid is a lot higher in Webster. So it just balances out when you look at all of the factors.
Okay. What was the median income in Webster? I'm sorry, 26,000? Is that what you said?
Per capita income, I'm sorry, it was 25, just about 26,000, 25,891.
Yeah, so it's like half of the median income of Upton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, I don't know.
The value in Webster is higher than Upton, probably because it has a more diversified tax base. Upton's more residential and Webster's got a lot more commercial and industrial. So when you look at the totality of the factors, they're similar. Now Upton's overall score was 91 and Webster's was 86. So Upton was more comparable to Sturbridge than Webster was, but Webster still scored 8. Anything over 80 is really good. So we had a cutoff at 86, but you had a lot of really strong comps.
What is our median income? Do you have that handy?
Your per capita is 42,689, according to
46.
When we did.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else? Hey, so Jeff, where do we go from here?
I think we need to decide on if you're going to recognize longevity on those positions that are entering the bottom of the range.
Hey, how's the board feel? Ian?
I absolutely think you should recognize longevity. I think people that have been with the town and know the systems and have made things work to this point, it's worth retaining them and paying them a little more.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I already said that I was in favor of recognizing longevity. I think it's very important for morale as well as just to be fair and equitable.
Hey, Chase?
I agree with the rest of the board. I think we should recognize employees that have been loyal to the town and, and reward them for that. So, yeah, I'm in support of it.
Hey, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay. And I am too.
So what does...
Hey, so Jesse...
So what does that look like? So are we using the scale in the book? And then instead of a percent, do you want to use a step?
Can we have the figures both ways?
Say again?
What a step would be and what a percent? Could we have the figures?
Well, the difference between the steps is 3%. So if you give 2 steps, you give a 6% in addition to the base.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get separate. I think I would like to see. I would just like to see the difference in what it would cost the town both ways. I want to see what the 1%, which is recommended in the Joe Ellen, or the step that we can. I can't do it off the top of my head when you just give it to us. If we can have that information, and then we'll be able to, then we'd be able to vote on the final one presented to us next meeting.
The percent.
And I think for budget purposes, you said you were going to go with these figures anyway. I just feel like I can't on the fly decide, because this was our presentation, and even Joellen in her handout says they'll make a presentation to the town leaders and then take those comments and then make it into the final draft. So I for one, would like to see what positions and what the numbers are before I say, yeah, go with the one that says, no, let's go with the step. It's kind of hard when we don't have the figures in front of us. We have the figures for everything else. That's just me, though.
Well, the percentage increase, and I'd have to talk to Joellen how to do this, because your percentage increase is on a stepped position. How does that work with a stepped position when you're increasing the percentage? Are you?
Jeff, I can help. I can help you with that. I mean, you can always do a percentage and then go to the step the next time. We can brainstorm offline. I can help you calculate it.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, so remember, the plan is you're going to bring him in to their bottom step now. Come July, they're going to get another step movement. So if you're going to adjust for, you got to somehow make sure there's a full step movement in July, okay, to make this work. So I would prefer you put them on a step, and then in July they can take another full step. That way it kind of keeps the integrity of the program together. Okay, so the next question is, what do we do with the recreation director and the economic development tourism coordinator? Are we bringing them in at full grade or full range?
Well, Jeff, I know I had expressed my opinion before on that. I think that's too much of a leap in dollars. I mean, someone else is, you know, up $395, $668. What a jump of $11,376 and $10,108 to me is pretty steep.
Yeah, I agree with our chair. I think that's kind of, it seems that's a little too much to swallow.
Gary?
Oh, I already said what my view is, but given that this may be the majority of the board's feeling, can Joellen and Jeff get creative so over time we do bring them to where they're supposed to be? If you can't do it in year one because that position's been too underpaid, because that's really what it means. It's a big leap because it hasn't been competitive. Right. And so if you can't do it year one, can you do it over time in like 3 years or something, as opposed to just saying we can't do it, so it's going to stay here, because that's going to continue to just be below the competitive rate. Yes?
We can certainly work on that. Just remember, the rec director position was just recently brought up to a full-time position. This is the first year it's been full-time. The same with the Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator. That used to be split with the Emergency Management Director. So this is the first year those two positions are recognized each at 35 hours a week. So there's not a real good translation to what they were before as we go forward. That's really what's driving that difference in those numbers.
Okay, so Jeff, I think Joellen can help, you know, on some of these questions and on some of the money, and we can get that information and then continue the discussion at our next meeting.
Okay.
Larry?
And just to satisfy me, would somebody just review the questionnaire and the duties and responsibilities of the assistant town clerk? Because again, I just don't think that's an administrative position when they have the same duties and they run an election. I'd like that looked at. I don't know if I don't know in the job duties if it says run an election, but that is a big job, a lot of responsibility in running a fair election.
I will review
Mary,
that.
can I just
Go ahead, Mary, sorry.
Can I just address something on that, Mary? The assistant town clerk does have all the duties of a town clerk. However, they're not both doing them at the same time. And as far as the election, town clerk is town election every 3 years. So that's the only one that the assistant town clerk has to take care of, unless there's an illness or something. So
I understand,
she does
Mary.
do a lot, but she doesn't do it.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with the person holding that position, actually. I'm going back 10 years when the position was created. And if you look at the 16 or 12, did we use 16 towns in the survey? If you look, again, the salary isn't even at the lowest in the 60th percentile by several $1,000s, which means the way other towns view an assistant town clerk is in stark contrast to the way Sturbridge looks at it. And that's one job that is extremely similar from one town to another. So I don't know. If you could, that's just where I'm coming from on that.
Mary?
Okay. So, yeah.
I will review the job description with the town clerk, and if there needs to be amendments, we'll send it back through personnel for amendments.
Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to say sometimes that issue of working in another position that's higher than your grade is there's in the personnel policy there's usually provisions for compensation for working out of grade.
Okay. Joellen, thank you. And I'm sure you and Jeff will be in touch.
We will. Okay.
Thank you, Joellen.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Have a good evening.
We appreciate it. Safe travel.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Let me just get this mess straightened out.
Oh.
Okay, next on the agenda.
Somebody needs to go out.
I think that was me.
Next on the agenda,
I don't have a dog.
we have a letter of resignation from Robert Ashenbo from the police department. Any questions on that? Hey, somebody want to make a motion then to accept the resignation?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Robert Archibald as a full-time police officer in the Sturbridge Police Department effective March 4th, 2021.
I'll second the motion. Ian?
Okay, any discussion? How do you vote, Mike?
Mike, muted.
I muted myself. I'm sorry. That was my dog barked. Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, Chase?
Yes, Chase.
Okay, Mary?
Mary, yes.
Ian?
Ian, yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. Okay, next we have good evening, Jean.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Okay, so this is, you've been working, well, you can explain it.
Sure. So we actually started working with a citizens group before the pandemic began. We've been getting, I think one of the most common requests we get is somebody wants to have chickens, they want to have their own eggs, and they would like to be able to raise them in the backyard. Currently in our bylaw, we cannot allow that unless they have enough land to be exempt under the agricultural bylaw. So 5 acres or 2 acres for small farms, and then they actually have to produce an income from that land. So we started working with a citizens group led by Seth Manser, and Janae in my office did research of all the other communities in Massachusetts to try to find some common ground in regards to allowing for chickens. So we worked on this bylaw, and by we, Becky Gendro, our conservation agent, Michelle Connors, our animal control officer, Nelson Burlingame, our building inspector, zoning enforcement officer, and then we kept Chief Dessert and Jeff aware of everything that we were working on as we went along through that. And so what you have before you is a bylaw that would be basically under the animal control officer and would allow for her to grant permission or a permit to allow people to have a small amount of poultry in their backyard. And you can see we based it on the acreage, the number of chickens that they may be allowed to have. And then we also put in standards for setbacks from coops and, you know, taking care of odors from manure and things like that. And then if it's less than half an acre, we have that they could only have a chicken or other type of poultry by special consideration of the animal control officer. And the feeling behind that was we do have a lot of lots that are a half acre or under, but some of them just may not be appropriate for the keeping of poultry, so that would really be on a case-by-case basis. So what we're here for this evening is to ask the Board of Selectmen to allow this request to go forward at the annual town meeting and see if residents believe that, or voters believe that we should incorporate this into our bylaws and allow people to raise poultry in their backyard.
Okay, anyone have a question? Comment?
I have a comment. I do have a lot of friends that love their chickens, so I fully support this general bylaw. But I do have a question about two things. In paragraph G of on, I forgot what subsection it is. I think it's 511G. It allows to have an illicit discharge, or I think it says unlawful. It would be an illicit discharge within 50 feet of a well, and I think it would be 100 feet from a well if you're going to have a discharge that has fecal contamination at the very least. And then somewhere else in here it allows piling manure within 50 feet of a well, and I think you might want to check with Title V and the Health Department to see if that has to be 100 feet away from a well as well. Not to make a pun, but.
Okay, I will do that.
But a very good bylaw. I think most of the people will be happy as long as there's no roosters.
We did prohibit roosters, peacocks, and guinea fowl.
Big mouth birds.
Okay, anyone else? Does someone want to make a motion then? To instruct the staff to prepare and review the necessary warrant articles for inclusion in the annual town meeting?
So moved, Mike.
Second, Chase.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Chase?
Yes, Chase.
And I vote yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, okay.
Bring on the eggs.
Okay. Now, on the next one, it's the reappointment. Jeff, we usually do all our reappointments at the same time. We decided that a few years ago, so everyone would be consistent.
Okay, that's fine. I got a request from the clerk to put it on here, so that's fine. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean,
I can put it on for July. That's fine. as long as that suits the need.
Is that when we do the appointments? Excuse me, Mary? Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute, Lynn. Jeff, is that when we do the appointments?
Well, we do them June for July effective dates, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Lynn, you want to say something?
Yes, so the appointment for the Board of Registrars, their expiration date is usually April 1st, according to my records.
Oh.
So we can change that to June 30th?
I think...
So there's...
Mary.
Okay, Jeff, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing, you know, that there's a charter that says appointments run till the end of June, but we got into a practice of appointing from date of appointment, and it ran to that date. So I think picking a process, whether it be date of appointment to date of appointment, right, or to whatever you're appointed, it goes to June 30th if you're fulfilling an unexpired term and so forth and so on. So I think we kind of have a mix of how we've done it, and trying to find consistency is probably key.
Right, that is correct.
Yeah.
Hey, now, Lynn, is this a date recommendation or what, the April 1st?
This was through the Board of Registrars in their meeting minutes. The expiration date was April 1st. They needed to be reappointed by April 1st. That was according to my record.
Hey, now which Board of Registrars is that?
The Sturbridge Board of Registrars. That would be Susan G. Murphy.
Yes.
That is up this year.
How long is the term?
The term
I think to air on
is for 3 years.
Right, and it's the Board of Selectmen appointment. And this would be a reappointment.
Correct.
If it's a new appointment, both the Democratic and Republican town committees have to be notified so that they can submit names, and then the Board of Selectmen would make a recommendation. But
that is correct. And
it's just reappointment.
Right. And by looking through my notes, I had to do some reevaluation of the Board of Registrars a few years last year, because a few of the registrars were also election workers, and that is uncalled for through the state. They cannot be election workers and be registrars. So in that case, I did contact the Republican Town Committee and also the Democratic Town Committee, and they did give me the names of Janet Garin and also Cheryl Wood Creedon. And they will be up for next year and then the year after following.
Right.
But they were all appointed at the same time, basically, because of that issue that came about.
Right. Well, if it's April 1st, we might as well go ahead with it. Somebody want to make a recommendation, motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the reappointment of Susan G. Murphy as on the Board of Registers for a 3-year term.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion again.
Okay, any discussion? Mike, how do you vote?
I just had a question. Are we going to have the appointment for 3 years ending June 30th of 2024, or is it going to be April 1st, 2024?
I can alter that to June 30th, so that way it can coincide with everybody else's appointment going forward.
If that's okay with the others, with Chase and Ian, I would vote yes.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, no, it would be consistent when it's what we're looking for.
I can do that.
Okay. Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary, how do you vote?
Area. Chase?
Chase, yes. Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. Okay, next we have a request from the town clerk for approval of the use of poll pads. Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, somebody want to make a motion then to approve?
This is Mike, and I'll make a motion to approve the use of electronic poll pads for elections. And this would also include town meeting for early voting.
Is there a second?
I will second that, Chase.
Okay, any discussion? Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gary, how do you vote? Gary, yes. Chase?
Chase, yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you for your consideration. Okay, take care, Lynn.
Thanks,
Thank
Lynn.
you. Good night. Okay, next we have a letter of request for clarification on the host community agreement. Jeff, you want to go over this?
Yeah, we got a letter from Mike Staddy with CPC, Local Routes. He's asking for some clarification on who can determine when police details are or are not necessary for their operation. So I'll let Mike jump in and talk about that a little bit, and then you can talk to Chief. I've asked Chief Desert to weigh in a little bit, and he's here to talk about it tonight too.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And good to see everybody, sort of. We're getting close to opening up, soft opening on March 29th and a grand opening on April 3rd. We wanted to just get clarification on Section 3, second paragraph, which talks about the police detail. We set a minimum requirement for 2 weeks, and then it also talks about written consent from the select board to make a modification to that. It also talks about management, including but not limited to the town of Counterbridge chief of police for the safety of traffic there. So we are hoping for both reasons of we don't need it, also at times that we do think we might need it, that this can be modified so it clearly states that the chief of police is the chief safety officer of the town can make this decision. We do not expect more than 50 to 100 customers the first week we're open. During the soft opening, we're expecting maybe 200 to 300 for the next few weeks and potentially building. There are 2 stores open within 5 to 7 miles of us now, one in Charlton, one in Southbridge. There's over 100 stores open in the state right now, and there just aren't issues with lines, and we're not expecting it. You know, we hope we'll have plenty of crowds, but realistically it won't happen. However, at a time like 420, which is considered a national holiday for cannabis, or the Brimfield Fair, where traffic is way up, there could be a situation where traffic does peak. And the way it's written now, during a peak, there's not a process to put police detail back in place. And likewise, if we open up and only having 50 customers a day, the way your board of selectmen meetings line up, we're going to have a police detail there for 70 hours plus or minus a week for almost a month. An enormous cost to us and a use on your resources in Counterbridge. So we're just looking for modification to make it clear that Chief Desert would be responsible for making that call when we don't need it and when we do need it. We think that's in the best interest of the town for safety reasons and also for the success of our young companies we get going here. So that's about it.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Keith?
Mike is saying,
there's something the matter with your sound.
Yes, start over, Chief, please.
Can you hear me okay now?
No.
Oh, it's doubled.
No.
Kind of sound like Darth Vader.
Chief, would you like me to read your letter then? Okay. Okay, the chief does say, I have reviewed the request and I think it makes sense to have the detailed request go through my office. This will allow the ability to decrease or increase police details as noted without a vote from the Board of Selectmen. Currently, all police details come through the police department. Okay, and we're going to have a question or a comment.
I agree with that. I would make a difference in full power. I certainly don't. I'm not an expert on police details, and I just think it makes more sense for the chief to work with local routes on making it what's best for the town.
And I totally agree with Michael that the way our meetings are spread out, they can be needlessly paying for details that aren't necessary. Yeah. And if they need more details to the police department, it can happen instantaneously. It doesn't have to wait till the board meets and gives an okay.
Yeah.
So is the board amenable to amending, Mary?
I just want to add, I don't have a problem going through Chief Dessert. I think that does make sense. But I always like to think of the worst case scenario. So if there's a situation where the board feels detail is needed and Chief Dessert, I want to be able to meet with Chief Dessert as a board and have our views shared. I don't want to take us out of the equation altogether. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem, Mary. Mike?
Yeah. I read the town administrator's email on this matter, and then I read through the agreement, and it clearly says the town, which is defined as the Board of Selectmen in the agreement, has the authority in this matter. However, the first paragraph, I agree with Mike Skady, that it says that local routes now has to coordinate with the chief of police, which is on any detail, the contractor has to call the police department to coordinate a detail. So I think we have, as the board, still have ultimate authority over the details. Our agreement does say that the local routes has to coordinate with the police, with the police chief in particular. So as long as it's coordinated, I think it's in accordance with our agreement, and I don't have any problem with it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, in section 3, the second paragraph, the last sentence of the second paragraph, the company agrees that on-site traffic control personnel shall be required for the first 2 weeks of operations at the facility and thereafter, unless the Board of Selectmen provide prior written consent to lift said requirement. I think that's really what we're talking about.
Correct.
Well,
Gary?
The language that Mike Supernaut quoted, I think should stay because that leaves ultimate authority with us. But that particular provision that Jeff's talking about, that would go through that. I'm okay with altering that language to mean Chief Dessert in terms of opening. In other words, that's part of coordinating police detail, whether it's the first 2 weeks of opening or it's during a flea market, whatever. But I just want the language that says the authority is with the town, the Board of Selectmen, to stay there, because that will allow us to have a voice in the event we want to provide some input to the chief of police with respect to details. I don't know if that made sense, but. Chase?
Does leaving that language in there allow them to not wait the 2 weeks to come to our meetings to work with the chief? I'm trying to help them, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Right. I think we all agree with that. Yes?
Can I suggest that the last sentence be amended to say the company agrees that on-site traffic control personnel shall be determined at with the coordination of the chief of police, with ultimate discretion being the Board of Selectmen. How's that?
That's amenable to us.
Chief?
That sounds clear.
Okay.
As
All right,
far
Alex.
as I'm concerned, that was the intent.
Alex, did you write that down? Because I won't remember what I said.
Yep, I got it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, then, does somebody want to make that motion?
So Mike, I'll make the motion that the coordination in the first 2 weeks at local routes has to coordinate with the police chief for the first 2 weeks, using the language that the town administrator just used.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Mary?
Mary, yes.
Chase?
Chase, yes.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next we have a...
Good luck, Mike.
Good luck.
Take care, Mike. We have a proposal for an amendment to Article 12 of the Code of the Town of Sturbridge. Anybody have any questions on that? Has to do with the earth removal.
I just have a quick comment.
Yes?
The way it's numbered in your packet is based upon what the numbering would be with the new codification. Given the time frame and the critical path for the codification, we may need to just renumber it based upon how the general bylaws are written today. So we'll have to evaluate that as we go. But other than that, the text is the text.
Right. I also had a question. Isn't earth removal in the zoning bylaws? Not the general? Jean?
It's actually in both, Mary. So it just about mirrors itself. And when we were going through the codification, the options were to take it out of one or leave it in both. And in reviewing this, I think it makes sense to leave it in both, because sometimes someone might not be thinking about coming for any kind of zoning approval, but might be looking through the general bylaws and see, oh, I need to go to the Board of Selectmen to get that earth removal permit. So I would recommend we just leave it in both.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, someone want to make a motion then to request the staff prepare a warrant article for consideration of town meeting?
I'll make the motion that we request staff to prepare a warrant article for consideration at town meeting.
I'll
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mike, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Mary?
Mary, yes.
Chase?
Chase, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
I do have a question. If if in going through the details of the general bylaw here, would there, and it's found that there is some inconsistency with the zoning bylaw, would the planning board be taking a look at that as well to make sure it's consistent?
Yep, we've actually cleaned up both versions, the general and the zoning, through this process so that they are both consistent.
Okay. Because this is just the general I see here.
Right. And the zoning, it's the mirror image now.
Okay. Just a question I had. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Gene. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the right of first refusal for 49 Bushnell Road. Any questions, comments? Okay, someone want to make a motion?
This is Mike, and I'll make a motion to forego the town's right of first refusal for the property at 49 Bushnell Road.
I'll second Mike's motion.
Any discussion? Chase, how do you vote?
Yes, Chase.
Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the right of first refusal for 133 Fifth Kill, 137 Fifth Kill, 39 Fifth Kill, and 48 Road. Okay, now, yes, there was some things lacking last time. Do we have them now?
Yes, the packet in the documents in your packet are acceptable to the town council. Is a form in deliverance to the town, certified mailings. The purchase and sale agreement has been corrected. State Forester has been noticed as well. So it is a complete packet for you all.
Hey, anyone have any questions or comments? Jeff?
Since the boards have met, we've received half dozen or so different comments from residents around this property with interest in the town acquiring it for trails or other recreational uses. The Open Space Committee did make the recommendation, although they may not want to buy it, they would be interested in trails, and the Conservation Commission's input as well was, yeah, we may not want to buy it, but we may want to look at some recreational trail use on the property. So I don't know if the board wants to continue investigating that possibility, maybe have a public hearing, go through some other steps, but just want to be conscious of the input we've received over the past, during this process.
Okay, Jeff, I thought you were going to discuss with town council possibility of easement for trails. Is that still in the works?
I did, and there's a possibility of some horse trading there, if the board's interested in that. There is the possibility to go forward with a public hearing if the board's interested in acquiring the whole parcel or all the parcels. So there are options we have, yes.
Okay, I mean, the interest in the trails, I mean, there's no definitive plan or anything on it. And I know, there are problems. It sounds great, to walk McGilpin, cross Fiskill, go down Old Farm, and then go down to Hall Road and down to the Common and everything. But there's a lot of obstacles in that way. I do remember, and Jean must remember, when Blue and Gold was going to go in, the town thought we could get a crosswalk on Hall Road, where there is none now and there's no sidewalk. So it would be a dangerous road. And the state said you couldn't put a crosswalk unless it went from sidewalk to a sidewalk, and that's not there. There's there's a lot of obstacles, and there's no definitive plan for it. But if we could negotiate with the purchaser to have easements for the possibility of some trails, instead of the town buying the whole parcel, the town would have to pay the $155,000 for it. And how the rest of the board feels. Mary?
I just have a couple of comments. The first is, I did file a disclosure with the town clerk. I live at the other end, well, I live 2 roads off of Fisk Hill at the bottom. I'm about a mile away. But because this would benefit the whole town, or if we bought it or got easement, I just didn't need to file it, but for an apparent conflict being a mile away, I did file something. But personally, I think it's a great opportunity for the money. I mean, it's 50 acres and it's $155,000. I can't believe that price, personally. I would like to personally exercise our right of first refusal with the possibility of, I'd like to hear from the people who would like it and maybe people who wouldn't, and have a public hearing, because we did get a fair amount of letters. And there is some interest. I mean, we also got something from Tom Chamberlain talking about the trails, and I would like to have a public hearing. The other thing is, it's considerably less than what we've paid for other open space opportunities, and I think it's worth looking into. 50 acres for $155,000. My other question, though, is what if the town were to put 2 houses on it, for 2 affordable houses, to try to bring up our, I know we're still below where we need to be, and we've done some really nice, with Project for Humanity. Is that who we worked with for the other?
Yeah, Habitat.
I'm sorry, Habitat Project. Habitat. I knew something was a little wrong. Habitat for Community. And then, I mean, to me, that would be a big draw, not only for the residents in all of Sturbridge, not just that neighborhood, but also for the 2 houses that we might be able to put up for Habitat for Humanity. I just think, $155,000, with the possibility of having a lot of open space, maybe put a couple houses, affordable housing units up, is a good. It's an opportunity that I think that we should pursue further and see how the town feels about it. I mean, it'd have to go to town meeting and we'd get the residents' input at that point. But I wouldn't want to just forego it at this point.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with a public hearing on this. I think we've got enough feedback from residents to at least hold a public hearing and, get some community input on it before we make a decision.
Mike?
Yes, I agree. A public hearing is a great idea. There's a couple things I'd like to have for the public hearing. If the Trails Committee could have a conceptual sketch or plan, it doesn't have, of what the trails might look like, or where they, it doesn't have, it would be something that we can show, something to show that the trails could be put in and they would start here and there. I think that would be very helpful to a public hearing. And also I would like to know whether the existing owner would be amenable to granting easements. Say if the town decides not to purchase it and to leave the property on the tax rolls as conventional housing. I don't know what the outcome of the hearing would be, or whether we want to put this on the warrant for town meeting at this point. But I think I could make a better decision after sitting in a hearing and listening to what the people have to say.
Hey, Jeff, could we set up a public hearing?
Sure.
Okay, what's the limit on gatherings now?
Well, we would have to do a remote hearing, as we've done for the liquor licenses or the poll hearings or so forth and so on. We'll just have to go through the process to make sure we notify the appropriate people and have the remote meeting. I don't know if we can get it in for the first meeting in April. Depends on publication capabilities or what the requirements are for a hearing on something like this. But we will get into it.
Okay, so can you work on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mary?
I just explained this to us before, but one more time. What is the whole, why can't we transition back to live meetings and then just limit the amount of people that come into town hall?
How do you limit the number of people into town hall? We'd have to have someone at the door.
Right, but I know like with some popular, there's been instances in the past, I've attended meetings where you're stuck in the hall, I mean, you're stuck not in the room you want to be in at other times. I mean, this wouldn't be, first of all, I don't know if we would even have that many people. But I don't know, I feel like there's got to be a way to balance the amount of people in the room. And for those that can't make it in, well, they didn't get there early enough, they can't make it in. Because there's a lot of people that they have difficulty with computers and having a remote hearing. I mean, one of the gentlemen that wrote to all of us said, had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of ideas, but then at the end said, I'm not really good with the computer, I may not be able to attend the meeting. And I just want to be in a position where if people want to come, they're able to come. So what is the maximum right now under the mask guidelines for the amount of people that can be?
You also are dealing with, you're dealing with an issue where some people may want to participate but don't want to go into a public meeting. Even when the board comes back together, you're going to need a remote option because some people just may not want to come out yet. They're not vaccinated, they have health concerns, or not want to be in the middle of it. So for the public hearings, all the public hearings we hold, you don't have to have a computer, you just need a telephone. Because we've been taking the public comment by telephone, not by computer.
Okay, so here's my question. So why can't we have that option for people? You know, you have the remote option if, you're concerned with the pandemic protocol, but you can also go live in Meet. That's what I'm saying. Why couldn't we do both at this point?
Well, I think you can go live with the board in the room and just not have the public in the room yet and still do that remote, right? Because you really can't estimate how many people are going to come out because you still have staff members, right? Are they going to be in the room or not going to be in the room, right? So you don't really know.
Right, but I follow, but I don't mean to be difficult. What I don't understand is why can't we be in person, the board? I know distance, mask, protocol. Whoever can attend when the maximum, just like in a restaurant, when the maximum allowed is done, they have to participate remotely. They don't get in I don't see why it has to be an all or nothing thing. Well, I don't know why we can't have some.
Are you going to send someone home and say, go participate remotely because you can't get in the room?
I've tried to be, well, it's no worse than the alternative, which is you have to be remote. You know what I mean? How is that any different than telling everybody they have to be remote? I've tried to attend hearings, different Board of Health hearings years ago, and when they reached their maximum, you didn't get in the room. To me, giving people the option, they're no worse off. If they go and we've reached the maximum amount of people and we're told we can't have any more people, you have to go remote, that's no different than going remote right from the get-go. It just gives people a choice.
Well, the benefit of having the board members in the room, it provides for a better conversation than what you're having now. That's the benefit of getting the board members and committee members back in the room. If we're going to do that, I'm going to need... Wait a minute. I'm going to need someone at the door who's going to count people and turn people away. And I can do that, that's fine. But I don't know if that's really where we want to be. But we can do it.
Well, you're turning people away, but still having the remote option, correct? It's both. You're turning people away and telling them you have to listen remotely, which is no different than the way we are right now. Okay?
Mary, I respect your opinion. I think we need to handle this baby steps. We're not even back in the room yet. I think the first step is getting us as a board back in the room. Do a couple meetings, work things out, and then we'll slowly integrate people back in and work that way. I don't think we all jump back in a room with the public right away. I think we slowly kind of bite at it.
Hey, Ian, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to go back to the topic of the land and try to recognize Brandon Goodwin since he's hung in there through this long meeting to speak to it.
Well, actually, it's at the chairman's discretion because it's not a public hearing. It's just a public meeting, which means that people can attend, but they can't speak. Well, they don't have the right to speak. But I think, you know, Brandon is chairman of the Trails Committee, and he has been listening to comments and been getting a lot of comments. Brandon, do you want to say something for a minute?
No, I think, you know, we're aligned in terms of we would put a presentation together that would paint, you know, a broad, you know, a few options for the Board of Selectmen in terms of why this is an important piece, especially given the public health recovery we've seen over the last week. You know, I think it would help with not only connecting this neighborhood, you know, through some hurdles, as you said, Mary, to downtown, but also give us, you know, the ability to have trails in a specific neighborhood, which is part, you know, both of those are part of the larger master plan, and we would present that in the public hearing. So.
No, if there was a plan, you know, and not just the trails, but also what you would think of doing for parking and stuff. I mean, people certainly aren't going to park on Old Farm. They might try to, so we need a presentation. But Jeff, why don't we go ahead and plan on a public hearing, and you can still get an opinion from town council on the easement issue. Okay?
I'll contact the property owner and see if there's interest there. The attorney did weigh in, so we can discuss that with the owner. Sure.
Okay, so that'll be the next step. Board agree?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next we have the stormwater GIS service. Hey, Jean, did you want to explain this, or Jeff?
Yep, I can. So we had been part of the Stormwater Coalition that had been using People GIS for our GIS work related to our MS4 permit. And the Stormwater Coalition is no longer, they still exist, but they're not using People GIS. It became to the point that not enough communities were utilizing the services, so it's no longer cost effective. So the DPW operations manager came to me and asked if I had funding in my budget so that I could catch up on the GIS mapping that needed to be done for our permit. And unfortunately, I don't. The funds that I have are already under contract for things like assessor's map updates and things like that. So this proposal that I received from Time and Bond is $15,000, and it will allow me sufficient funds to work with Ty and Bond to get that mapping that needs to be done for this current year complete. So I'm asking that you sign the agreement and allow this project to go forward.
Hey, thank you, Jean. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. Yeah, on the first page of the agreement in section 1.0 scope of work, can we delete words 2020 water and sewer rate study and insert GIS stormwater support services in the agreement.
Okay.
And there's one line for the board to sign, so should the motion be to ask the chair to sign the agreement? Or does the whole board have to sign it?
That's up to you all, I guess.
You mind signing it, Mary?
Oh.
Okay. So.
Well worth the pay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Sign and Bond for stormwater GIS services in the amount of $15,000 and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion. Yeah. Ian.
Okay, any discussion? Chase, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Chase.
Mary?
Mary, yes.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next we have a request.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Rest up.
You say?
Take care. Okay, next we have a recommendation from the DPW director to appoint Dan Javasi as heavy equipment operator, effective immediately at a starting wage of $28.77. That shouldn't be per year. Should it be per hour?
Per hour, yep. Thank you.
Nobody would do the job for that.
You would be very disappointed if we appointed him at that.
Okay, any questions? Someone willing to make a motion?
Mike, and I'll make a motion to confirm the appointment of Dan Giovazzi as heavy equipment operator, effective immediately at a starting wage of $28.77 per hour.
Second, Chase.
Okay, discussion? Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes.
Mary?
Mary, yes.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next we have COVID-19 update. Jeff?
My update's in the packet, and you heard that we've been able to come up with a program to vaccinate the homebound residents, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Mary?
I think that's great. What was the, I don't want to call it delay, but I guess that's probably a good word for it. What was the delay in coming up with the program? Because I know some homebound people must have qualified in the 75 and older age, which was a good month and a half ago. Was it Harrington? Was it delivery, or what did you have to work out?
Right. So the issue was, there's a word called transference, okay? And according to Harrington Hospital, taking the vaccine out of their clinic and going out the door with it was a transference, and they weren't allowed to do that, okay? That's what the holdup was. It wasn't about logistics, because we could transport the nurse or whoever's doing it to the site. All these people were otherwise eligible. So it was just getting Harrington to release the doses out of the front door of the clinic. And that was the hang-up. So Ken and Leslie and Chief Grasso and all the people involved, and and some people I contacted at Harrington, came together and came up with a pilot program which would allow us to do this week.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, next we have discussion on senior and veterans work-off program. Hey, Jeff, you want to go through this? I know you got a lot of numbers together with Ian.
Yeah. So we're talking about two different programs, the senior workers program and the veterans workers program, and we've given you details on all those. Currently, both of those programs, the benefit for each individual is $500 in their taxes, and according to state law for both programs, how this works is you work an hour, you get the minimum wage towards that $500. Once you've worked enough hours to hit $500 based upon the minimum wage, you get the $500 benefit, okay? So if you ramp up the amount of money available, you ramp up the number of hours a person has to work to get that benefit. So, and then you have to budget the funds in the overlay account to account for the abatement you're going to provide based upon the number of hours people work. So historically, and you have to be income eligible also. So we've had less robust participation on the veteran side. You can see the numbers from Ann Murphy. And about 20 to 25 people, 26 people on the senior side that participate. Historically, we've had difficulty finding matching jobs to people, you know. So that's kind of where we are. We'd be happy to talk about how we enhance this program. I think it's a good program, benefits a lot of people, but there's certainly items to discuss as we do that.
Any questions? Mary?
Thank you. I was the one that requested that we look into this. So one thing that I personally didn't realize is what you said, that they can't earn more than the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. You know, I wasn't necessarily envisioning them working more hours, but just upping their minimum. But now I know by state law that that's not doable. Mm-hmm. But one thing that confused me a little bit is on page, on your March 11th memo on the back, after several of you met, it says increasing the amount of the benefit may decrease the participants since more hours are necessary to attain the benefit. I don't see why it's up. Okay.
Top of 452.
Yeah, I see it. May just
top of 452. Yeah.
Right. I mean, unless
right.
you're going.
I don't.
Let me clarify. If you're going to say you have to work 1,000 hours, you have to, you know, the benefit's $1,000, you got to work, you know, the X amount of hours, or you're going to say you can work to $500 or you can work to $1,000, right? Those are two different things. So if you say you have to work,
yeah. So right. Got it. Okay. So my suggestion, of course, would be the more, you know, we're trying to make this more beneficial to seniors and veterans. So no, I wouldn't say that they have to work to get that they have to commit to the equivalent of getting $1,000 deduction, but that it would be available if they wanted to. So if there's seniors that right now are in the program and they want to just continue to earn $500, they can. But I would like us to consider increasing the amount that they can work if they want to work more. Okay, so that would be a permissive thing. It wouldn't be required. So that wouldn't decrease the amount of people because they could continue just what they're doing right now. It's not required. It's just lifting the ceiling for the maximum amount of money and hours they can put in, which I personally think would be a good thing. I mean, we adopted this, in 2000? Well, it was approved in 2000 by town meeting and 2016. So I think that we've had it pretty constant since its inception. And, you know, there might very well be seniors that would like the opportunity to work more and get a bigger benefit. So, and the same with veterans.
Yes?
Yeah, and I agree. This is something we should take a hard look at to see if we can expand it. And again, one of the concerns would be to make sure we have enough jobs for people to work the extra hours and not take hours away from someone else that only want to work 500 hours. You know what I'm saying? So we got to make sure we have enough jobs for people. So I think that's kind of where we are as staff, making sure we have enough positions that someone who wants to work 1,000 or earn the $1,000 could, and those that want to earn $500, there's jobs for them too, without, you know, taking two $500 jobs and giving it to one person. Because we've had trouble finding enough finding enough duties to have the hours.
Right.
Right.
I mean, since I've been on the board, we've never had a senior like working, I don't think, I could be mistaken, for the town administrator or the board of selectmen or Alice's position. I mean, I would think that we'd be able to, I mean, I'm sure Alice welcomes somebody to help make copies, and I think there's more jobs if we think about it for different
Mary, can I interrupt you for a minute? We do have to get a list of the jobs, but the town administrator's assistant used to have a senior working in the office. Work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had
doing a lot of clerical work.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Okay, so that's good. I didn't know that.
We do definitely need a list of jobs available. We haven't looked at the list, I think, since we initiated it. I do know there's a lot of them do stuff at the senior center, and I know, I think it was Ian's statement that some of these may not even be real jobs.
Yeah, I saw that, and that was kind of upsetting because you know, I've used senior work off over the years, and you can you know, you can there are in town government, you know, quite a few jobs that really you need help with. I mean, you know, I've had someone who had been you know, a executive secretary to a large corporation, and just came in and just did filing, archive files that should, you know, you just don't have time to do all that stuff. So there are real jobs that can be, and the department head has to certify the hours, I believe. I mean, I've always had to certify the hours worked, so they better not be not real jobs, because that's illegal. So I would hope they're real jobs. And there's plenty of things that can be done. You know that, Marion. That comment that, you know, they're not real jobs didn't sit well with me. There are plenty of real jobs that can be done by senior walk-off. What, 26 people or something like that is what we're estimating for the budget. I have a question. Is there any reason why we have the cutoff date as December 20th? Could we move that up to March 1st of the year preceding the, you know, I mean, that seems kind of, you know, that's like right around the holidays, and people might not be paying attention. But by March, they're going to be looking for what they want to do in the next fiscal year starting in July. So I think it's too early of a cutoff date for both veterans and senior work. I think if we could move that policy up so the cutoff date for applications to be, say, March 1st, because people that are already on the work-off program can't do anything over the $500 until after March 31st. So that in March, you'd be thinking about figuring out who you're going to use for the extra work and what the town administrator was discussing. So I'd suggest that we're going to change the policy, up the cutoff date from December 20th up to, say, March 1st. So you'd be working on that only during the month of March. I know that's a busy period with
budget.
With budget. So maybe you might want to, I don't know, but December is way too early as far as I'm concerned. I think you could even push it back to April after town meeting. But whatever.
Well, the problem is that the money that goes into the overlay account is figured into the budget. So.
Oh, yeah. So it has to be part of the budget.
Yeah.
It's the overlay. Well,
as soon as they know.
Yeah, the amount that's being all you need is the amount that you're going to appropriate. And that's the other thing. We're appropriating, what, $15,000 for senior and $15,000 for veterans, and the need in veterans doesn't seem to be there. Maybe we should increase seniors up to 20 and cut veterans back to 10 or something like that, because we're never going to come up to $10,000 with. But the overlay, we appropriate $30,000 a year for this, for senior and veterans work-off program. So the overlay isn't really a big, you don't have to crunch the numbers too hard for that. We appropriate $30,000 each a year total between the two. So that's, for the overlay. Unless unless you want to change it every year, but.
Okay. Mary, you had a question?
I agree. I like the idea of like an April cutoff. We're still doing the budget now. I mean, once you know the amount, you just plug it in. I wouldn't want to reduce the veterans. I'm trying to find there in the memo.
Yeah.
Our veteran agent chimed in that he supports increasing it. Trying to look
He's
for
never even come close to using it.
Right. But what he says is his recommendation was that increasing the benefit could help veterans who do not have a VA disability rating and perhaps match the work-off program benefits to the disabled veteran program benefits. So I definitely wouldn't want to see that reduced. But, if they don't use it, they don't use it. We can still appropriate it. If it doesn't get used, doesn't it just go back to the general fund?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
the estimate
it stays in the overlay account.
Oh, it stays in the overlay account. Okay.
Okay. Well, Jeff, why don't you work on definitive numbers and jobs?
Okay.
And we can decide our next meeting.
All right. So.
I mean, it's always nice if they could get more money, but 1,000 hours or whatever. That's
about 200
out of time. Yeah. Jeff?
So the takeaway is we want where someone can either earn 500 or 1,000, right? We want to look at the cutoff date for application, and we want to reevaluate what jobs are available to make sure there's lots of jobs available, right? Is that my takeaway this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're increasing up to 1,000 for the senior?
I'm asking you. I'm asking you.
Yeah.
And then
right now that's
work with the
$750.
veteran and work with the veterans program consistent with what Mr. Strupa has recommended. Right?
Sure.
Yep.
The veterans is already about 500 and 1,000. So but the seniors 500 and 750. I think if they're the same, 500 and 1,000, that would make sense.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the goals we worked on at our retreat. Prioritize them. Did anyone send in any to Jeff?
I'm sorry, I did not. I apologize.
Okay, don't apologize, Mary. It's going to be unanimous that no one did.
It's okay.
I thought we were waiting for tonight. I misunderstood.
That's okay. The only problem with tonight is we've been at it. It's been a long day, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion that'll make us stay up past our bedtime. So between now and our next meeting, why don't everyone take their list and prioritize? Okay, and then get them to Jeff, and he can collate them. Is that okay?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so next we have memo about the budget meeting with the Finance Committee. Everyone had a chance to read it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is everyone still up on having the meeting? Just got to work out the logistics of where.
Yeah, I don't think we need a whole Saturday. And I think the Finance Committee's recommendation of just to get together to talk about the big picture is what we should be doing.
Well, I only find the problem with that is because FinCom's big picture is not always what we have. But I do believe that we can request certain department heads that we want information to come in. Not everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, it shouldn't be, not going to be a 9-to-1 thing, that's for sure. But I do think we need input from the department. So, Jeff, you're going to still communicate with FinCom and work on location?
Well, I think we can do location, but I need to clarify agenda. What are we going to talk about, and who's going to be there?
Okay. I believe the police chief and the fire chief need to defend their budgets. Anybody else?
The only other big budget is the DPW.
Yeah.
And all the other budgets are pretty small compared to those three.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have another one? Mary?
I just had a question. I know it's not how we've done it in the past, but do we want to consider, instead of a Saturday, to do it during either our meeting or when the Finance Committee normally meets, and do it at night? I mean, I will meet either way, but personally, I'd rather do it at night than on a Saturday. But if the rest of the board prefer a Saturday, that's fine with me.
Well, I don't mind meeting anytime, but the problem with at a FinCom meeting, they're pretty well taken up going through the warrant articles and line items. So it would be rather a long evening, unless it was just an extra evening for them.
I think
that's what I was contemplating.
They would rather do an extra evening than a Saturday.
Okay, sounds fine.
Okay.
So would I.
Oh, I'm on
Okay, Ian?
I would just need I'd prefer like a week notice to a weeknight. Mary mentioned bedtime. This is pretty early for me still. I'm usually involved with the restaurant, so during the week, I would just need like a week's notice so I could get coverage.
Right. Understandable. No, it's not my bedtime either. Okay, you got that, Jeff?
I do.
And next we have communication.
Okay. The first, on February 26th, we received an email from Ryan Melville, Executive Director of the Massachusetts Alcohol Beverage Commission, and there was an attachment that says that they're lifting the 40% cap on seating capacity for establishments serving alcohol. The next correspondence was in a letter from Barbara and Mick Calver for appreciation of the Council on Aging Director and staff, and it's a beautiful letter. I hope that the director, and it just compliments them for everything they've done during the COVID crisis. And I would have to agree with the, they asked to share their remarks with the select board, and I think the whole board has received the letter, and it was very nicely written. The next thing was March 4th, Charter Commission, upcoming changes, and we had 2 letters from Charter. Which they're adding on Tier 2, a lifestyle TV channel 178 will be coming, and the other notice is, I guess, the Filipino channel will be added or is upgraded to high definition, and that's channels 405 and 2559. And then on March 5th, we received another communication, Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, and it seems to be a, for outdoor use, for performances, they're allowing outdoor performances, live performances, as long as there's 10 feet separation between performers, and they're located at least 25 feet from the audience. And we got a letter from KP Law about rate increases. They're increasing their hourly rates by $10 an hour, and third parties for negotiations, it's $15 an hour. And lastly, on March 10th, we received a letter from Mass DOT advising us that the Project Review Committee, PRC, has approved the project in Sturbridge, the Sturbridge-Charlton intersection improvements at 149 in Sturbridge, and in Putnam Road in Charlton. They've approved that project for $2.32 million. And that letter came from Barry Lorian, District Highway Director. So they'll be working at the intersection of Route 49 and also at Putnam Road in Charlton. And that's one project on Route 20.
You know what they're doing to improve that, Mike?
I don't know, because it's a new approval and it hasn't come before the MPO yet. It will have to come before, unless the state's doing it all on their own, but the MPO would be if there's federal money involved. But we can get more money, the town administrator can. I
was just curious, it's been such a bad spot, obviously.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff?
The town administrator has some information.
Yeah, we reached out to DOT to see what that project was, but the letter is just an acknowledgement of eligibility for funding. So I don't think it was an authorization for a project, but we've reached out to DOT to see, because we didn't have a understanding of what that was too, or either.
Yeah.
So when we get more information, we'll get it to you.
Very good question.
Okay, now I did forget other old business. Ian, do you have any?
I do not.
Gary?
No.
Mike?
No, not at this time.
It'll be too late later.
Yeah, well,
Chase?
it's getting late.
Chase fell off at some point. I think at the, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he didn't feel well, he had to step out.
Yeah, understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have no new business, Mike?
No new business. Oh.
Aaron? No. Ian?
I do not.
Okay, the only thing I have, Jeff, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it to you before, but it concerns the outside dining at restaurants. Last year, the state waived the process of which these places could have outside dining, and it was strictly left up to the local licensing board. Have we heard any more on that?
Well, the state's executive order, emergency order is still valid. So our approvals are still valid. I asked Gene what the motion was last year. Let me read it to you. Trying to find it. I asked her that exact question today. Sorry, just trying to find that email. Give me one. Oh, here it is. We did not place an expiration date. The certificates say this certification for temporary outdoor dining will stay in effect for the duration of the Massachusetts Executive Order, COVID-19 Order Number 35, or as further amended by the governor.
Okay, so it hasn't been?
No. No.
Okay, so we'll be all set to go. They just need to notify us that they're doing it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, next
they've
we
all
have
with Gene, yeah.
Okay. Next we have minutes of March 1st. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Your motion then to approve is written?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as written, yeah.
I will second Ian's motion.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Mary, how do you vote? Mary, yes. Mike?
Mike, yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
We have citizens forum.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
We're all in bed.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak at the citizens forum for the Board of Selectmen?
Yes. This is Peter Zay, 42 Old Farm Road. I'll keep it short because it is so late, and I just wanted to thank you for, having a public forum on the land behind my house. I think it is something the town should give serious consideration to, and I look forward to it, and hopefully it won't be too tough for people that aren't good with computers like me. So we'll leave it at that, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Is there anyone else on the line for public forum? All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Oh. Nobody wants to second it.
Somebody second it, please.
I'll second it.
There you go. Mary and Mary on that one.
All right.
Ian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary?
Mary, yes.
Mike?
Mike, yes.
And I vote yes. Okay.
Good evening.
Have a good evening.
Have a good few weeks,
thank
everybody.
you all.
Thank you.
And I've got 2 minutes to watch full.
That's